I've brought everything. As he spoke, Feng Shuo pulled out a craft paper envelope containing all the documents needed for the divorce procedures. Let's go. It should be pretty busy right now. We'll probably have to queue, he said, stepping into the civil affairs office. Lin Feng stared at Feng Shuo's back, feeling somewhat dazed. She had heard of Long Wanqing's name before. She was a well-known investor in Jiangzhou. Any project that caught her eye invariably turned into a major success. Shifei Industrial was currently facing a crisis and customer compensation claims, which was why Guan Yunshui had been scrambling everywhere lately seeking investment to weather the storm. Long Wanqing's Longjia Investment Management Company was Guan Yunshui's top target. Thus, discussions about Long Wanqing were rampant within the company. How did Feng Shuo come to know Long Wanqing, and even ride in her car? As she stood there lost in thought, Guan Yunshui quickly approached and said, Lin Feng, there's something I think we need to discuss. Lin Feng looked surprised. What is it? Well, could you possibly not proceed with the divorce today? Guan Yunshui asked, his face slightly awkward. Lin Feng was stunned. Why? It's like this. Everyone in our company already knows we're trying to secure investment from Longjia, but their response has remained vague and unclear. I don't know how to move forward. I noticed Feng Shuo seems to know Director Long, so I was wondering if maybe I could ask him to sound her out for me, just to get a sense of where things stand. That way, I'd have some idea what steps to take next. Lin Feng's expression immediately darkened. Her hands clenched tightly together as she fell silent. She was the one who proposed the divorce. She was the one who suggested coming to the civil affairs office. Now that Feng Shuo had arrived, all the documents were ready. How could someone suddenly say they wouldn't go through with it? This was utterly ridiculous. Chapter 33, bailed out. Guan Yunshui could see Lin Feng's hesitant expression and tried to persuade her. Lin Feng, we're practically family already. The company will belong to you sooner or later. For the sake of the company, for our future, we just have to endure this temporary humiliation. After an intense internal struggle, Lin Feng's tense body gradually relaxed. Guan Yunshui was right. Once they got married, she would rightfully become the boss's wife. Then half of the company would belong to her, and no matter what, she couldn't stand by and watch it collapse. What was dignity anyway? If she could swallow her pride to beg her parents, she could certainly do the same to Feng Shuo. Lin Feng took a deep breath and nodded. All right, I know what I need to do. Then she strode into the Civil Affairs Bureau and quickly entered the main hall. Feng Shuo had already taken a number and was quietly waiting in his seat. Lin Feng had prepared what she wanted to say and walked over, sitting down beside him. Feng Shuo, there's something I want to talk to you about. Lin Feng bit her lower lip slightly. Feng Shuo looked at her. What else do you want to say? It's like this, you. Before Lin Feng could continue, her phone suddenly rang. She quickly pulled it out, glanced at the caller ID, and answered. A minute later, she hung up the phone, looking completely dazed, as if her soul had left her body. Feng Shuo noticed her strange behavior and asked, what happened? Who called? Lin Feng stared blankly at Feng Shuo. It was the police station. My younger brother Lin Bing got into a fight and injured someone. He's been arrested, and they called me to come pick him up. Feng Shuo frowned. He assaulted someone and got arrested? That's serious? But why did they call you instead of his wife? Lin Feng shook her head. I don't know either. Anyway, I can't worry about that now. I need to go to the police station and get him bailed out first. After speaking, she hesitated for a moment, then said, Feng Shuo, can you come with me? Although she was anxious inside, Lin Feng didn't dare go to the police station alone. After all, she'd never been there before. A woman naturally felt a little scared. Feng Shuo smirked teasingly. Why don't you ask the man outside to accompany you? He wasn't petty by nature, but it irked him a little that Lin Feng only thought of turning to him when she was in trouble. Lin Feng looked slightly embarrassed. Lin Bing is technically still your brother-in-law. We haven't finalized the divorce yet, so legally, we're still a married couple. Guan Yunshui and I aren't officially together. It wouldn't be appropriate to ask him for something like this. Fine, since you put it that way, I'll go with you. Saying this, Feng Shuo stood up. It seemed today's divorce wouldn't go through after all. First, he'd better go with Lin Feng to the police station and figure out how to get Lin Bing released. The two walked out of the Civil Affairs Bureau together. Guan Yunshui immediately approached and asked, Lin Feng, how did it go? Lin Feng replied, let's put the divorce on hold for now. Can you drive us to the police station? My brother's been arrested, and I need to bail him out. Guan Yunshui glanced at Feng Shuo. Is he going too? Yes, just drive us there. We'll handle the rest ourselves. Guan Yunshui fell silent for a moment. He understood Lin Feng's reasoning though. Even though their relationship was nearly public knowledge, it still lacked legitimacy. Moreover, he currently needed something from Lin Feng, so he couldn't say much. Wordlessly, he got into the car. Once Lin Feng and Feng Shuo had also gotten in, he stepped on the gas and drove toward Jiangzhou police station. Interestingly, Guan Yunshui was driving. Lin Feng sat in the front passenger seat, while Feng Shuo sat in the back row. At a glance, Guan Yunshui and Lin Feng appeared to be the couple, while Feng Shuo seemed like an outsider. But Feng Shuo didn't care. His marriage with Lin Feng was essentially over anyway, so such minor details didn't matter anymore. Soon, they arrived at Jiangzhou police station. Lin Bing, a bandage on his face and handcuffs on his wrists, sat dejectedly on a bench. As soon as Lin Feng entered, she spotted him and rushed forward anxiously. Lin Bing, are you okay? Seeing his sister arrive, Lin Bing perked up instantly and jumped to his feet. Sis, help me get out of here quick. An officer nearby snapped sharply. Who told you to stand up? Sit down. Lin Bing flinched in fear and obediently sat back down. Feng Shuo stepped forward and asked, Officer, could you tell me what exactly happened here? The officer glanced at Lin Bing and sneered. Over a woman, he got into a violent fight. In a fit of rage, he smashed someone's head with a chair. Now the victim is pressing charges for intentional assault and demanding full compensation for all damages. Lin Fong frowned and looked at Lin Bing. You got into a fight over a woman? What's this woman to you that you'd actually beat someone up for her? Lin Bing glanced up at Lin Fong, hesitated, and finally said nothing. Though he didn't speak, Fong Shuo already knew the truth. This woman was the one with whom Lin Bing had an affair, and later, because of her, he had beaten his wife, Shi Xiaomei, driving the kind-hearted woman to suicide. Lin Fong wasn't stupid, and as someone who had lived through similar experiences, she instantly understood what was going on. She now realized why Lin Bing had dared only to call her instead of telling Shi Xiaomei. Fong Shuo asked coolly, "What procedures do we need to follow if we want to bail him out?" The officer looked at Lin Fong, then at Fong Shuo. "What's your relationship to him?" Lin Fong quickly replied, "I'm his older sister, and this is his brother-in-law." The officer nodded and turned to Fong Shuo. "All right then, come with me. Sign a few documents and pay the bail fee, and you can take him away. But when you get home, make sure to discipline him properly. Don't let him be so impulsive in the future." Fong Shuo thought for a moment and asked, "Excuse me, how much does the other party want in compensation?" "I'm not exactly sure, but from their attitude, it seems they won't settle easily. They might demand anywhere from 3 to 50,000 yuan. It's definitely possible." Lin Fong exclaimed in shock. "What? So much money? I'm just saying it's possible. If you want to know more, you should ask the other party directly." After saying this, the officer led Fong Shuo to complete the procedures. After signing a few forms and paying 5,000 yuan in bail, they left the police station with Lin Bing. Once outside, Lin Fong exploded in anger. "Lin Bing, how could you be so reckless? Why resort to violence? Can't you solve things by talking them through like a normal person?" Lin Bing, no longer timid as before, wore a defiant expression. "Sis, you don't understand. That bastard was touching Lan Xiao indecently. I couldn't stand by and watch that. Lan Xiao, Hong Xiao, who cares? Who exactly is this woman to you? How dare you pick a fight over another woman? When Xiaomei finds out about this, how do you think she'll feel?" Lin Fong shouted furiously. Chapter 34. The Art of Conversation. At the mention of Shi Xiaomei, a flash of panic crossed Lin Bing's face. He pleaded, "Sis, whatever you do, don't let Xiaomei find out. You want to keep this from Xiaomei? But can you really hide it? The victim is pressing charges against you and demanding compensation. Your parents and Xiaomei will eventually find out anyway." Lin Bing shook his head. "It doesn't matter if mom and dad know, but Xiaomei absolutely cannot find out. Sis, you don't want me getting divorced either, right? Think about how much money I spent getting married. If we divorce, all that money goes down the drain." Hearing these words, Fong Shuo almost lunged forward and slapped Lin Bing hard across the face. How could someone so shameless exist in this world? He treated marriage like a business transaction, viewing Shi Xiaomei as nothing more than a commodity. Instead of reflecting on his own infidelity, he used such a pathetic excuse and expected others to help him hide the truth from his wife. But these were family matters, and even though Fong Shuo thought Lin Bing was despicable, it wasn't his place to interfere. As for the 5,000 yuan bail money, Fong Shuo had already decided not to ask for it back. Knowing this family's nature, that money might as well be gone for good. "If there's nothing else, I'm leaving now. Deal with your family issues yourselves," Fong Shuo said coldly before turning away. He feared that if he stayed any longer, he might lose control and beat Lin Bing senseless. The next morning, after dropping Guo off, Fong Shuo received a call from Lin Fong. "Fong Shuo, would you mind helping me one more time?" "Tell me what it is," Fong Shuo replied. "The man Lin Bing injured is currently at Jiangzhou People's Hospital. I found out his room and bed number. I'd like to visit him on Lin Bing's behalf, just to check how serious his injuries are and find out how much compensation he's demanding." Lin Fong, being a woman alone, didn't dare go to the hospital by herself. She was afraid the injured man might make things difficult for her, and she wouldn't know how to respond. Fong Shuo frowned. "Why come to me again? Yesterday, going to the police station was understandable since I had no official standing and couldn't properly represent anyone. But today, when visiting a hospital, why can't you get him to accompany you?" Lin Fong sighed. "He's been extremely busy with work lately. I don't want to burden him with trivial matters. Anyway, just give me a straight answer. Will you go or not?" "Fine, I'll go with you. Let's meet at the hospital entrance." After hanging up, Fong Shuo left home. Half an hour later, he met Lin Fong at the gate of Jiangzhou People's Hospital. Following the information Lin Fong had gathered, they went directly to the ward and located the man injured by Lin Bing. The man looked seriously hurt, his head wrapped tightly in white bandages. "Mr. Zhai, right? Hello, I'm Lin Fong. I'm Lin Bing's older sister." As she spoke, Lin Fong placed the fruit, health supplements, and other gifts she brought onto the bedside cabinet. "I'm here on my brother's behalf to visit you and offer our sincerest apologies." Upon hearing she was Lin Bing's sister, the man named Zhai immediately darkened. "No fake sympathy from you. I reject your apology. Take your stuff and get out. I never want to see either of you again." Lin Fong quickly said, "Mr. Zhai, please calm down. We came here sincerely to apologize. My brother is young and acted recklessly in a moment of impulse, but he's already been punished. We hope you can forgive him." Before she could finish, Mr. Zhai roared, "Forgive? After beating me into this state, you expect me to forgive just because you say a few words? Do you even know what really happened? You know nothing, yet you come here demanding forgiveness? Get out. Get out of here." Lin Fong tried to speak again, but Fong Shuo stopped her. The man was furious now. Anything said at this point would be useless. Moreover, Lin Fong had started by asking for forgiveness without even listening, which only poured gasoline on the fire and made everything worse. Feng Shuo studied the man carefully, then said, Mr. Zhai, I truly sympathize with what you've been through. Someone like Lin Bing deserves to suffer some consequences. That way, he'll learn his lesson and remember it. In situations like this, you must never position yourself as an adversary. Instead, stand on the same side as the other person. Only then can you quickly lower their guard, making further conversation far easier. This was the art of communication, and Feng Shuo had mastered it to perfection. Sure enough, after these words, Mr. Zhai's expression softened noticeably. Mr. Zhai, please rest assured, we're not the kind of family that covers up wrongdoing. If someone makes a mistake, they must admit it and accept punishment. We won't tolerate misconduct. We're not here asking for your forgiveness. We simply want to know how much compensation you intend to claim from Lin Bing. For the first time, Mr. Zhai looked Feng Shuo directly in the eye. Compared to that woman, this man actually knew how to speak. Every word struck a chord deep inside him. He snorted coldly and said, he beat me up like this. Not only did I suffer physical pain, but I've also wasted precious time stuck in this hospital. Do you have any idea how much I'm losing for every minute I'm delayed? Feng Shuo nodded repeatedly. Yes, I understand. I know it all. Brother Zhai, your time is money. Wasting your time means wasting money and even life itself. But Brother Zhai, what exactly do you do? Why is your time so valuable? The man surnamed Zhai hesitated, fell silent for a few seconds, then said, finance. I work in finance. Judging from his expression and words, Feng Shuo instantly understood. The so-called working in finance was nothing more than stock trading. Still, judging by the man's demeanor and manner of speaking, he must be handling significant amounts of capital. Very likely a VIP client at a securities firm, someone qualified for a private trading room. But he didn't seem like someone managing his own vast wealth. Otherwise, he wouldn't be lying in an ordinary hospital ward. So Feng Shuo deduced that this man was probably managing stocks for others and earning a commission on the side. In today's world, there wasn't really a formal job title like stock trader, so people in this field were usually freelancers who, to outsiders, seemed practically unemployed. That explained why Mr. Zhai was being vague, simply claiming to be in finance without revealing the truth. Yet Feng Shuo knew that these people often handled enormous sums of money daily. Without real skill and insight, they'd have long ago suffered crushing losses and lost everything. Oh, so Brother Zhai works in finance? Then surely you've heard of Long Wanqing from Longjia Investment Management. At that name, the man's eyes lit up immediately. Director Long? Her reputation is legendary. She's actually my idol, so young yet so sharp in her judgment. A true role model for our generation. Feng Shuo had thrown out Long Wanqing's name as a gamble. Although investment banking and retail stock trading weren't quite the same field, they both belonged to the same circle. He wanted to test the other man's reaction. And luckily, he guessed right. Well then, looks like we're fated to meet. I'm friends with Director Long, close friends. As he spoke, Feng Shuo pulled out Long Wanqing's business card from his pocket. Chapter 35, Drive it down to the minimum. The man surnamed Zhai wore an astonished expression. I didn't expect you actually know Ms. Long. Long Wanqing wasn't someone who handed out her business card everywhere. In fact, her card was extremely rare. Only those she deemed worthy would receive it. So when Feng Shuo pulled out Long Wanqing's card, the man surnamed Zhai became certain that Feng really knew her. Haha, I've had some dealings with Ms. Long, Feng Shuo said casually. We're around the same age, get along well, and have become friends. I see. In that case, we truly are quite fortunate to meet. Feng Shuo smiled. Brother Zhai, isn't this just a flood washing away the Dragon King's temple? We could say fate brought us together. Wouldn't you agree we've now become acquainted through this incident? Since we're so lucky to cross paths, could you possibly show some leniency regarding the compensation? A stiff look spread across Brother Zhai's face, his eyes flickering with hesitation and inner struggle. Feng Shuo subtly warmed up to him, lowering the other's guard and quickly narrowing their emotional distance. Once the conversation began flowing naturally, he seized the moment to make his request. From the very beginning of their talk, Feng Shuo had firmly held the initiative. Having lived 2 lifetimes, he possessed rich experience and insight. During the conversation, he could keenly detect weaknesses in the other man's expressions and tone, then swiftly exploit them. At this point, if Brother Zhai continued to press hard, he'd seem unreasonable. Moreover, Feng Shuo knew men like this cared deeply about face. They weren't the kind to turn completely hostile without cause. After a long silence, Brother Zhai finally spoke. Brother, I'm only letting this go for your sake. But you must fully cover all medical expenses and lost wages here. Feng Shuo slapped his chest confidently. No problem at all. That's only fair. Additionally, you'll need to compensate me for my losses during this hospitalization. I'll be generous. I'll settle for 30,000 yuan from you. Lin Feng had stayed quiet throughout, watching Feng Shuo chatting amiably with the man, assuming the matter was resolved and no compensation would be demanded. But now he was demanding 30,000 yuan, so all of Feng Shuo's negotiation just now had been useless after all. Unwilling to accept it, she blurted out, "Why do we still have to pay 30,000? Before she could finish, Feng Shuo quickly stopped her, preventing her from saying more. Then he smacked his thigh in agreement. Absolutely reasonable. Big Brother Zhai, thank you so much for showing mercy and sparing my brother-in-law. You're a true friend. If I ever get the chance, I'll definitely introduce you to Ms. Long." Brother Zhai smiled, though he didn't take Feng Shuo's words seriously. He wasn't stupid. He already saw through Feng Shuo's attempt to cozy up and reduce the compensation amount to the lowest possible. No worries, no worries. Going through this ordeal was unfortunate. I haven't rested properly in ages anyway. Might as well treat this as a short vacation. Oh right, I didn't catch your full name, Brother Zhai. Zhai Fei. Got it, I'll remember. I'm Feng Shuo. If fate allows, we'll meet again. With that, Feng Shuo bowed slightly toward Zhai Fei, then pushed Lin Feng out of the hospital room. Once outside, Lin Feng complained. Weren't you two getting along just fine in there? Is this guy crazy for money, demanding 30,000 like that? No way, I'm going back to argue with him. Feng Shuo blocked her. You should be lighting incense in gratitude we got it down to 30,000. Do you really want him to pull out his bank statements so you can pay according to that? Would you feel satisfied then? He claims to work in finance, but likely he's just managing stocks for others. People like him handle at least 1,000,000 yuan daily. If he actually produced his bank records, how much do you think you'd owe? Lin Feng opened her mouth but couldn't utter a word. Enough. Instead of wasting time arguing, use that energy to call your parents and figure out how to raise the money. Get it sorted quickly. Otherwise, if this drags on, he'll actually sue your brother. Then not only will you have to pay, but Lin Bing might end up in legal trouble too. Think carefully. After speaking, Feng Shuo turned and walked away. Lin Feng stood frozen in the hallway. After what felt like forever, she gritted her teeth and finally called Lin Guoxiong and Zhou Ping, urging them to find a way to gather the funds immediately. From this point on, none of this concerned Feng Shuo anymore. He was about to divorce Lin Feng. Her family's problems were theirs to solve. The fact that he had come with her was already going beyond duty. Just as Feng Shuo was about to exit the hospital's inpatient building, he suddenly heard someone calling from behind. Mr. Feng. Mr. Feng, is that you? Feng Shuo stopped and turned around. Approaching him quickly was a middle-aged man with prematurely gray hair, whose youthful face contrasted with his dignified and somewhat imposing aura. Feng Shuo immediately recognized him. Wasn't this Wang Yuanhang from the Market Management Division of the Grain Bureau? Wang Yuanhang was wearing a hospital gown, clearly staying here as a patient. Director Wang? Feng Shuo saw him, and, though not surprised at all inwardly, still put on an outward expression of astonishment. There was no need to guess. The words Feng Shuo had spoken last time at the shop must have truly sunk in. That's why Wang took it seriously and came to the hospital for a checkup. His body had already been in poor condition. Once examined, they were bound to find something, which was exactly why he ended up hospitalized. Wang Yuanhang was visibly emotional as he walked over and tightly grasped Feng Shuo's hand. Mr. Feng, I finally found you. This is wonderful. After what you told me last time, I went home and thought it over carefully. You were absolutely right. If a man ruins his health, how can he continue serving the people? Health is the foundation of revolution. This isn't just an empty slogan. So I made the time to come to the hospital for a full physical. You never know until you check, but when I did, I was shocked. The doctor said chronic overwork has taken its toll, and many parts of my body are malfunctioning. As he spoke, Wang's face showed genuine fear. Most seriously, there's a tumor in my lungs. The doctor said fortunately I came early, it's still benign. But if I delayed much longer, there would have been a risk of cancerous transformation. In fact, I know the doctor was softening the truth. What's inside my lungs is cancer cells, but because it's at an early stage and hasn't spread, it's easier to eliminate completely. Mr. Feng, if not for your words, I wouldn't have come for this checkup. If the illness had progressed further, even a god descending from heaven couldn't have saved me. You're my savior. Afterward, I sent someone to your shop to express my gratitude, but my men reported that you'd already sold it. I was just trying to track you down when, unbelievably, I run into you here. Feng Shuo smiled. Director Wang, please don't be so formal. I merely gave you a little reminder. Calling me your savior is going too far. Besides, even if I had given advice, there'd be nothing I could do if you hadn't listened. The person you should thank most is yourself. Hearing these words, Wang Yuanhang wore an expression of deep admiration. This young man, humble, cautious, and unwilling to take credit, was truly rare. Chapter 36, Baseless Accusations. Wang Yuanhang, after all, was a man of the bureaucratic system and held an official position. If he showed too much gratitude, it might be exploited by others, potentially putting himself in a compromising situation. So he chose not to argue or defend himself, simply keeping the kindness in his heart. After some conversation, Feng Shuo learned that Wang Yuanhang's lung tumor had been detected early and successfully removed through surgery. He didn't even need chemotherapy. He would only need to stay in the hospital for another 1 or 2 weeks for observation. If there were no signs of deterioration, he could be discharged. Hearing this, Feng Shuo felt genuinely happy. After all, saving Wang Yuanhang's life was partly due to his own warning. Saving a life, wasn't that a virtuous deed? Since Wang Yuanhang had just undergone surgery and was still recovering, he shouldn't stay out too long. After bidding farewell to Feng Shuo, he returned to his hospital room to rest. Feng Shuo went back home, did some housework, and waited for his daughter to come back from school. After leaving the hospital, Lin Feng thought about it over and over again and decided she had to tell her parents about this matter. After all, the demand for 30,000 yuan in compensation was enormous. Without her parents' support, Lin Bing alone would never be able to handle it. Moreover, Lin Guoxiong held a high-ranking position in a state-owned unit. If Lin Bing's incident affected his father's career prospects, that would be disastrous. Thus, she immediately returned to her family home, intending to explain everything clearly. When she walked in, before she could even open her mouth, she saw Lin Guoxiong, Zhou Ping, Shi Xiaomei, and Lin Bing all sitting on the sofa. Lin Guoxiong's face was dark with anger, and the atmosphere in the living room was so oppressive it felt suffocating. Seeing Lin Feng, Lin Guoxiong snorted furiously. You still have the nerve to show up? Lin Feng was completely baffled. Lin Bing had caused trouble, Why was her father blaming her? Zhou Ping spoke bitterly. Lin Feng, what kind of man did you end up marrying anyway? I admit, back when you first married, Feng Shuo worked hard and earned more than anyone else in this whole family. But ever since he lost his job, he changed completely. Lazy, aimless, useless as mud on a wall. If he'd just kept drifting like that, fine. But now he actually dared to do something like this. Lin Feng couldn't help but frown. Dad, Mom, what are you talking about? What has Feng Shuo done now? Lin Guoxiong roared, still playing dumb. Feng Shuo got into a fight over a woman, fighting another man out of jealousy. Just then, Lin Bing happened to pass by and tried to break it up, but got dragged into the brawl without cause. During the chaos, he accidentally injured someone. Now the other party is pressing charges for assault and demanding compensation. Tell me, how are we supposed to deal with this? After hearing these words, Lin Feng was utterly stunned. She looked at Lin Bing in disbelief, but his eyes darted left and right, avoiding her gaze. Yes, Lin Bing knew the truth couldn't stay hidden forever, so he lied. He didn't dare admit it was his own fault. Instead, he fabricated a story, shifting all blame onto Feng Shuo. After all, his parents loved him the most. They would never bother investigating the truth. Even if Lin Feng and Feng Shuo denied it, the old couple wouldn't believe them. This burden, Feng Shuo was doomed to carry it. Lin Guoxiong slammed the table. Where's that bastard Feng Shuo? When trouble hits, he hides like a coward, making his wife face everything alone. Lin Feng was speechless. She wanted to explain, but she well understood how deeply rooted her parents' preference for sons over daughters truly was. Combined with their existing prejudice against Feng Shuo, any explanation from her would be futile. She opened her mouth several times, only to stop herself each time. Finally, she sighed and said, I just came back from the hospital. We've spoken with Mr. Zhai. He said he won't file a lawsuit against Lin Bing, but on one condition. She turned to look at Lin Bing. We must pay 30,000 yuan in compensation. As soon as the words left her mouth, the entire family erupted in shock. Lin Guoxiong shouted, What? 30,000? That's outrageous. They're basically robbing us. Zhou Ping wailed uncontrollably, tears and snot streaming down her face. Oh heavens, they're demanding 30,000. Why should our Lin Bing pay for Feng Shuo's wrongdoing? That damn man. I told you to divorce him long ago, but you wouldn't listen. See what's happened now. Shi Xiaomei frowned and said, Mom, Dad, now that this has happened, blaming won't solve anything. We should focus on figuring out how to come up with the money. Her words silenced everyone. 30,000 yuan. This was no small amount. Although Lin Guoxiong earned a high monthly salary, it would still take him 2 or 3 years of eating nothing and spending nothing to accumulate such a sum. Lin Bing idled around all day without a proper job. Shi Xiaomei was a full-time housewife raising children and had no income. The entire household relied solely on Lin Guoxiong's earnings. Over the years, he had earned quite a bit, but he'd also spent heavily. The family had little saved up and simply couldn't come up with such a large sum. If they were to borrow money from others, Lin Guoxiong and Zhou Ping couldn't bear to swallow their pride and ask. As for Lin Bing, all his so-called friends were good for drinking and partying. None would lend him a cent in hardship. After smoking one cigarette, Lin Guoxiong asked gravely, How much can we pull together at home? Zhou Ping sighed. We only have a fixed deposit of 200,000 yuan, made last year. It hasn't matured yet. Go withdraw it all. For the rest, I'll figure something out, Lin Guoxiong said. Zhou Ping grumbled unhappily. Withdrawing now means losing a lot of interest. Lin Guoxiong frowned. At a time like this, are you still worrying about interest? If we don't get this money, your son could go to prison. Zhou Ping retorted. It's clearly Feng Shuo who caused all this. Why should we be the ones paying? We can't possibly cover all 30,000. Feng Shuo must shoulder part of it too. Lin Guoxiong suddenly seemed to realize something. He slammed the table. Exactly. Why should we pay everything? Feng Shuo has to take responsibility too. Lin Feng, you tell me, how much will the two of you contribute? Lin Feng let out a stifled groan, nearly spitting blood in outrage. This whole mess had nothing to do with her. It was entirely Lin Bing's fault for getting into trouble outside. And now, after all that, she was being forced to pay? Was there any justice in this world? Yet facing Lin Guoxiong and Zhou Ping, Lin Feng could only remain silent. She didn't dare defend herself or object, because she knew that if she showed even a hint of defiance, the entire family would turn on her at once. Just then, Shi Xiaomei took out a bank card and placed it on the coffee table. Mom, Dad, there's 50,000 yuan in here. It's the bride price you gave when you married me off, plus the red envelopes you gave to Duo during festivals over the years. I've been saving it all, never touched a single penny. The fault lies with Lin Bing, and he can't escape responsibility. But this is all I have. I can't give any more than this. It had to be said, Shi Xiaomei was the most sensible person in this household. Moreover, she clearly understood what kind of man her husband really was. Though unaware of the full truth, she vaguely sensed that Lin Bing was hiding something important. Chapter 37, A Complete Transformation. Lin Guoxiong and Zhou Ping didn't say much about Shi Xiaomei's behavior. What she said was not wrong. Regardless of whether they were implicated or not, it was indeed Lin Bing who had injured the man. Lin Guoxiong turned to Lin Feng. Xiaomei has already spoken her mind. You, as the older sister, why aren't you saying anything at all? Don't just stand there like a mute. Speak up, what do you want to do? Lin Feng stammered for a long while before finally replying. You all know how things are at my place. There's simply no way we can come up with so much money. Hearing this, Lin Guoxiong and Zhou Ping froze momentarily. In their anger, they had momentarily forgotten about Lin Feng's circumstances. Their own lives were already hard enough. How could they expect her to produce such a large sum? Lin Guoxiong grunted in frustration and said helplessly, forget it, forget it. I knew I couldn't count on you. No backbone at all. Married a man who only knows how to cause trouble. Here's what we'll do. You don't have to pay a penny, but that's hardly acceptable either. Go home and see if there's anything valuable lying around. Sell it and contribute toward our compensation. Whatever you can get is whatever you can get. That's all we can do. With that, he waved his hand impatiently. Go. Hurry back and figure something out. If it weren't for the fact that you're my daughter, I'd have told you to sell your house by now. Biting back inner sorrow and resentment, Lin Fong turned and walked away. After she left, Lin Bing spoke with a dark expression. Dad, the more I think about this, the more suspicious it feels. What's suspicious? Lin Guoxiong asked. 30,000 yuan. That number came straight from my sister's mouth. We don't actually know how much it really is. And that guy only had a small cut on his forehead, yet he's demanding 30,000 right off the bat? That's outrageous. I now have strong reason to suspect that my sister and brother-in-law are in cahoots with that man, trying to extort money from us. 30,000. They sure aren't shy to ask. As Lin Bing spoke, Lin Guoxiong suddenly slapped his thigh hard, as if struck by revelation. You're absolutely right. I thought the same thing. Who in their right mind demands 30,000 from us? I got carried away earlier and didn't think clearly. But now that you mention it, something definitely feels off. A little blood on the forehead, a few days in hospital, medical fees would barely top a few thousand. And he wants 30,000 from me. Zhou Ping angrily interjected. They say a married daughter is like spilled water. Lin Fong has learned the same shameless ways as her good-for-nothing husband. Guoxiong, Lin Bing, let's go to the hospital together later. I want to find out exactly how much they're really asking for. Lin Bing sneered and cracked his knuckles loudly. If that brat still refuses to see reason, I won't mind making sure he stays in that hospital a few more days. Unaware of her parents' and brother's plans, Lin Fong walked along the street for quite a distance after leaving. Only then did her inner turmoil begin to ease slightly. This was truly a disaster falling from the sky. Lin Bing caused trouble outside, and without investigating further, her parents forced her to share responsibility. All the household items had already been sold off by Feng Shuo. What valuable possessions could possibly be left? Besides, going back now filled her with reluctance. Yet she couldn't defy her parents. After much hesitation, she decided to return anyway. Maybe Feng Shuo had overlooked something. If she could find anything to sell, even a little money would give her some kind of excuse to present to her parents. Checking the time, Guo probably hadn't finished school yet. She decided to go back first. If Feng Shuo wasn't home, she could go inside and search for anything worth selling. When she arrived home, she found Feng Shuo absent. Lin Fong breathed a slight sigh of relief before unlocking the door and stepping in. The moment she entered the living room, she froze completely. If she hadn't used her own key to open the door, she would have sworn she had entered the wrong apartment. All the furniture and appliances in the living room were brand new. Under the coffee table lay an expensive-looking velvet Persian rug. The TV screen was several times larger than before, and the sofa, a high-end modern fabric design, was exactly the style she had always liked most. The old coffee table had been replaced with a crystal glass one, and a set of European-style teacups had been added on top. Compared to the past, the living room now felt like a different world entirely. Lin Fong had dreamed countless times of having a space like this. Never did she imagine seeing it become reality with her own eyes. Still stunned, she stepped into the kitchen and found that the refrigerator had also been replaced with a new model. In Guoguo's room, a children's study desk and chair had been added, and her bed had been replaced with a solid wood one. Her own bedroom had undergone tremendous changes too. The bed was new, and so were the bedding and linens. Though only furniture and appliances had been replaced, Lin Fong roughly estimated that the cost must be at least 50 or 60,000 yuan, perhaps even more. Did Feng Shuo do all this? Where on earth did he get so much money? Suddenly, she remembered, when she had returned that day and found all their belongings gone. Feng Shuo had tried to explain, but she stubbornly believed he had sold everything in the house. Now, faced with the undeniable reality before her, she had no choice but to believe it. If Feng Shuo had enough money to replace all the furniture and appliances, then what about Guoguo's school? Could it be true that Guoguo was really attending that private elementary school? Lin Fong forcefully suppressed her inner shock and walked into the bedroom, where she retrieved a bank savings passbook. She had never bothered to check their financial situation before, because there was never any money in the account. The balance was usually just a few yuan, hardly worth looking at, as it only brought more distress. But now, she desperately wanted to know how much was actually in the account. This bank account had been opened when they got married. At the time, they received both a passbook and a bank card. Lin Fong had kept the passbook, while the card remained in Feng Shuo's possession. She slipped the passbook into her bag and prepared to leave. The drastic changes in the house had so deeply shocked her that she completely forgot why she had even come back in the first place. Just as she was about to step out the door, Feng Shuo returned with Guoguo. Both were surprised. They stood facing each other, eyes meeting, falling into an awkward silence. Guoguo broke the silence first, smiling brightly. "Mom, you're back from your business trip." Lin Fong looked at her daughter and saw that she was wearing the uniform of that private elementary school. Her name was even embroidered on the uniform. As far as Lin Fong knew, uniforms were only given to officially enrolled students. The fact that Guoguo was wearing one meant she was already attending that school. Feng Shuo hadn't lied to her. Guoguo's enrollment had truly been settled, and at that prestigious private school, no less. Something stirred deep inside Lin Fong. For a moment, she didn't know what to say. Thinking back, ever since Guoguo was hospitalized, Feng Shuo seemed to have transformed completely. He was no longer the same defeated, apathetic man. He had become proactive and determined. The hospital bills, the medical expenses, all of it had been covered by the money he earned. Now, not only had he secured Guoguo's spot in a private school, but he had also completely renovated their home with brand new furnishings. But the question burning in her mind remained. How on earth had he managed to earn so much money in such a short amount of time? Chapter 38. The trouble got serious. Lin Feng forced a faint smile. Mom just came back to grab something, and I'm leaving again now. Guoguo looked reluctant. Are you going on another business trip? When will you be back, Mom? Very soon. As soon as this trip ends, I'll come right back. After saying that, Lin Feng quickly turned and walked away. She was afraid that if she stayed any longer, Guoguo might ask more difficult questions that would put her in an awkward position. She hurried all the way out of the residential complex, then went to the nearest bank and requested a printed balance statement at the counter. The account balance showed over 400,000. Lin Feng could hardly believe her eyes. She counted the zeros after the digits again and again, terrified that she had made a mistake. In the end, she had no choice but to accept it. There really was nearly 500,000 yuan in the account. Ever since she married Feng Shuo, this account had never held such a large sum. Even at the peak of Feng Shuo's salary, they'd never saved anything close to this amount. Lin Feng's heart trembled with shock. She couldn't understand what kind of business Feng Shuo was running that he could earn so much money in such a short time. Other than illegal ventures, she couldn't think of any legitimate business capable of generating such enormous profits. Her mind was unsettled. Suddenly having so much money only left her anxious and confused. Worse, she was deeply worried about where the money came from. What if it wasn't earned legally? Carrying this heavy burden, Lin Feng returned to work in the afternoon. Her best friend Xiao Mei seemed to sense something was off and leaned over to whisper, Feng, what's wrong with you? You look so troubled. Lin Feng glanced at her and asked, I want to ask you something. Do you think it's possible for someone to go from having nothing to making over 400,000 yuan in just over a month? Xiao Mei laughed. Sure, by robbing a bank. It was meant as a joke, but the word sent chills down Lin Feng's spine. She was right. Aside from robbing a bank, who else could possibly make so much money in such a short time? Even Guan Yunshuai probably couldn't pull that off. Some people do start from nothing, but it takes years of hardship and struggle. But other than being busy every day, Feng Shuo didn't seem to be enduring any real suffering. Therefore, Lin Feng became convinced Feng Shuo must be involved in some kind of illegal business to have accumulated so much money. After work, Lin Feng got into Guan Yunshuai's car. The place she was living in now was arranged by Guan Yunshuai, who had even paid 2 months' rent for her. Halfway through the drive, Lin Feng suddenly asked, Can I ask you something? How long did your father take, from starting with nothing, to earning his first fortune? Guan Yunshuai didn't know why she was asking, but after giving her a curious glance, he replied, My dad started as an apprentice. It took him 20 years before he could start his own company. After founding it, he made his first fortune in 5 years. Shifei Industrial Company, Limited was established entirely by Guan Yunshuai's father. Now, due to old age and poor health, it had been fully handed over to Guan Yunshuai. Hearing this, Lin Feng immediately reached a conclusion in her heart. Guan Yunshuai's father endured 20 long years before finally starting his business, then spent 5 more years struggling to make his first fortune. To Lin Feng, that already made him extraordinary. Yet Feng Shuo, starting with nothing, made 10,000 yuan in 3 days, 150,000 in a week, and over 400,000 within a month. Unless he was doing something illegal, how could he accumulate wealth so fast? She had thought Feng Shuo had finally become ambitious and hardworking, only to realize he had taken a dark and twisted path, one leading to no return. At this rate, it was only a matter of time before everything fell apart. So before he inevitably got caught, she must divorce him. And Guoguo absolutely could not stay with him. A father involved in illegal dealings would be extremely damaging to his daughter's upbringing. After dropping Lin Feng off at her place, Guan Yunshuai repeatedly hinted that he wanted to come inside for a bit. But each time, Lin Feng politely refused. Although their relationship was practically common knowledge at this point, she wasn't ready to take that final step. They weren't married yet, and Lin Feng also feared gossip from others. She didn't want people thinking she was fickle or immoral, nor did she want anyone speaking ill of her behind her back. When she got home and hadn't even had time to change clothes, her phone suddenly rang. It was sure Xiao Mei calling. On the phone, she was sobbing uncontrollably, barely able to form a coherent sentence. Still, Lin Feng managed to understand. It turned out that after she left, Lin Guoxiong, Zhou Ping, and Lin Bing had gone together to the hospital to find Zhai Fei. Their original intention was simply to verify whether the claim about 30,000 yuan compensation was real. But with Lin Bing's terrible temper, it wasn't long before they started arguing. Lin Guoxiong and Zhou Ping both believed Zhai Fei was deliberately trying to extort money, so their words were especially harsh. Finally, Zhai Fei lost his temper. On the spot, he decided he no longer wanted them to pay the 30,000 yuan compensation. Instead, he would handle everything formally and legally. Everything would proceed through judicial procedures, compensation where due, and criminal charges where appropriate. It should be known that since Zhai Fei managed investments for others and handled huge sums of money daily, he naturally knew many wealthy and influential people. With strong connections, he quickly brought in a lawyer. The lawyer presented Lin Guoxiong's family with Zhai Fei's bank statements, income verification, securities company transaction records, and more. After thorough calculations, the lawyer demanded the Lin family compensate Zhai Fei 800,000 yuan for economic losses. Hearing the amount, Lin Guoxiong and the others were completely stunned. Only at this moment did they realize that Zhai Fei's initial demand of 30,000 yuan had actually been extremely lenient. Now, the compensation had more than doubled, and Zhai Fei insisted on pressing criminal charges against Lin Bing. That meant not only would the Lin family have to pay a fortune, but Lin Bing might also go to prison. Upon hearing the news, Shi Xiaomei broke down completely. 800,000 yuan, a sum so massive, where could they possibly get that kind of money? And if Lin Bing went to prison, it would seriously impact Lin Guoxiong's future as well. If he got dragged into this mess, their entire family would truly collapse. Sister, what should I do? What are we going to do? Lin Bing is your younger brother. You must think of something. You have to save him. After hanging up the phone, Lin Fong fell into deep distress. Originally, she had also thought Zhai Fei's demand for 30,000 yuan in compensation was excessive. Feng Shuai had gone to great lengths to smooth things over, yet still ended up needing to pay so much. It had seemed like all that effort was wasted. But now, she suddenly realized the truth. Feng Shuai had already reduced the compensation to the lowest possible amount. It was Lin Guoxiong and Lin Bing who had made everything worse, completely undermining all of Feng Shuai's efforts. Now the disaster had escalated beyond control. Any further negotiation with Zhai Fei would probably be impossible. He wouldn't have brought in a lawyer unless he'd truly been provoked. What should she do? Lin Fong racked her brain desperately. Chapter 39, Getting Through the Crisis. Suddenly, Lin Fong thought of that bank book. There was over 400,000 yuan in the account now. If she took it all out, it would solve half the problem. Her parents probably had other savings too. If they pulled everything together, it might be enough. If it still wasn't sufficient, the shortfall wouldn't be much. She could borrow a bit from relatives and friends to tide them over for now. But what troubled her most right now wasn't compensation. It was the criminal charges. Still, Lin Fong believed the other side might just have been angry in the moment. If Lin Bing sincerely apologized and offered proper compensation, once Zhai Fei cooled down, things would likely settle. Lin Fong's guess was correct. The next day, Shi Xiaomei called again, saying Lin Guoxiong had spoken with Zhai Fei's lawyer. The opposing party demanded a public apology from Lin Bing, and in exchange, they would drop the criminal prosecution. But regarding civil compensation, not a single thing could be reduced. They'd held a family meeting all night. Everyone had chipped in, scraping together every last penny, even pulling out their hidden retirement savings. Zhou Ping and Lin Guoxiong had even contributed their secretly hoarded pension funds. In total, the family had managed to gather 38,000 yuan, but they were still short by 42,000. Lin Fong clenched her teeth and said firmly, Xiaomei, tell mom and dad, I've got the 42,000 here. Sure, Xiaomei fell silent. After a long pause, she finally asked hesitantly, Sis, you're not joking about this, are you? You really have 42,000? Lin Fong nodded. Yes, I do. You didn't mortgage your house for a loan, did you? No, even if you mortgaged it, the bank wouldn't give you that much. Did you borrow it from your boss? Sis, think carefully. Borrowing is easy, but how will you pay it back later? Lin Fong reassured her. Don't worry, Xiaomei. This money is truly mine. It's complicated to explain now. Once we get Lin Bing through this, I'll tell you everything. Right now, our only priority is getting past this crisis. Soon after Lin Fong hung up, both Lin Guoxiong and Zhou Ping called separately to confirm whether she really had the 42,000. They didn't ask where the money came from, because that wasn't their concern. Once they confirmed Lin Fong actually had the sum, both immediately felt relieved. Not long after, while Lin Fong was still at work, Lin Guoxiong and Zhou Ping arrived at her company and called her out. The three then went to the bank beside the office and withdrew the full 42,000 yuan in one go. Normally, such a large withdrawal required an appointment, but Lin Guoxiong, fearing delays might cause complications, insisted on immediate access, even if it meant paying an urgent processing fee. Over 400,000 yuan in cash filled an entire bag. For the first time in days, Lin Guoxiong and Zhou Ping wore smiles, leaving Lin Fong standing alone at the bank as they walked away with the money. With the full amount gathered, the elderly couple brought Lin Bing to the hospital, personally apologizing to Zhai Fei and handing over the full 80,000 yuan compensation. Having received both the apology and payment, Zhai Fei accepted the resolution. Finally, the matter was settled. After withdrawing the money, Lin Fong's heart remained uneasy. In her haste to help her younger brother, she hadn't thought much before handing it all over to her parents. But now, with such a massive sum gone, Feng Shuai would surely notice. And when he asked questions, how should she explain? Tell the truth? Absolutely not. After all, this mess was caused by Lin Bing. If Feng Shuai learned the whole story, he'd probably storm straight to her parents' home and create a huge scene without hesitation. So what should she do? Lin Fong felt completely at a loss. Meanwhile, Feng Shuai remained unaware that the money in his bank account had completely vanished. He actually had a detailed investment plan, one that could use this sum of over 40,000 as capital to rapidly multiply it several times, even tenfold. The current economic environment was exactly the starting phase of market reform. Many state-owned enterprises were undergoing restructuring. A brutal process, as companies unable to adapt to market demands would inevitably be eliminated. Some of these state-owned enterprises, used to the guaranteed benefits of the planned economy, became early victims. Outdated and inefficient business models couldn't survive market competition, leading to heavy debts. To survive, management often resorted to selling fixed assets for cash, selling machinery and equipment to raise funds for operations. Yet without equipment, productivity plummeted, making it even harder to compete. This led to deeper debt, necessitating further asset liquidation. After cycling through this vicious loop for some time, even the largest enterprises eventually had no choice but to declare bankruptcy. vanishing forever into history. The most famous incident in Jiangzhou was the bankruptcy and closure of the city's largest state-owned food processing plant. Before the restructuring, it was renowned as a lifetime job guarantee, a position everyone would go to great lengths to obtain. But after the reform began, the company's deep-rooted problems in operations and management were fully exposed. Mismanagement from the top leadership drove Jiangzhou's biggest food processing plant straight into a downward spiral. They continuously sold off machinery and equipment for quick cash to cover financial shortfalls. Yet, the more equipment they sold, the greater their financial deficit grew, eventually leaving them no choice but to declare bankruptcy. In terms of timing, the Jiangzhou food processing plant still had some time before its final collapse. Right now, this was precisely the stage when they were selling equipment at low prices to fill funding gaps. If someone bought these machines cheaply now and resold them to other companies immediately, they could make profits several times over, perhaps even tenfold. This was exactly what people called a golden opportunity, just like going to an antique market and buying a vase for 100 yuan, only to discover later it was a Yuan dynasty relic. The principle was the same. He currently had over 400,000 yuan on hand. If things went smoothly, flipping that money just once could multiply it 10 times, turning 400,000 into 4 million overnight. Even in the worst-case scenario, a 5 or 6-fold return was still entirely possible. The problem was, Fang Shua didn't personally know anyone at the Jiangzhou food processing plant. Their equipment sales were restricted to trusted contacts only, so despite his idea, he couldn't act on it directly. Fortunately, he had a friend named Hu Yuran, who dealt in agricultural product distribution and frequently interacted with people in the catering industry. He definitely had connections. So Fang Shua planned to use Hu Yuran's network to contact the responsible person at the Jiangzhou food processing plant. He approached Hu Yuran and briefly explained his idea, who stared wide-eyed and blurted, "What? You want to buy equipment from Jiangzhou food processing plant?" "Yeah, they're having operational issues, so they're forced to sell off equipment for cash. I'll buy low and sell high, simple arbitrage." As soon as Hu Yuran heard this, his mind lit up. He cautiously asked, "Bro, is this lead reliable?" Fang Shua smiled. "Of course it is. Ever heard of Weimei Food Company, Limited? That's exactly who I plan to sell the equipment to." Hu Yuran's mouth fell open. Weimei Food Company? Oh man, do I know them? Chapter 40 Selling equipment on the side. To be honest, they're actually my biggest clients. Part of the products I wholesale from the farmer's market get distributed to them. It's a joint venture, and quite a large one at that. Bro, you seriously planning to sell Jiangzhou food processing plant's equipment to Weimei Food Company, Limited? Fang Shua nodded. Yes. Besides Weimei, there are actually several other food processing plants from out of town. That's also part of my target customer base. Hu Yuran knew Fang Shua well. Whatever decision he made was guaranteed to be profitable. And not just a little profit, either. It had to be substantial. So he asked carefully, "How much can we make flipping this once?" Fang Shua thought for a moment. Conservatively speaking, about a 5-fold return. If everything goes smoothly, even 10 times profit might be possible. Upon hearing this, Hu Yuran's mouth fell open. Damn, 5 times the profit? If I invest 200,000, that means it'll turn into 1 million overnight. Fang Shua said confidently, 5 times is just the baseline. Based on my estimate, the average return should be around 7 to 8 times. Hu Yuran suddenly felt short of breath, his heart pounding hard. A few machines could earn so much. He'd been a distributor for years, built things up to his current scale, yet his monthly profits barely reached 1 or 200,000. But if he followed Fang Shua into selling equipment, completing even a single deal would bring him as much as a full year's earnings. Exorbitant profits, absolutely exorbitant. He was truly stunned by what Fang Shua had said, but Fang Shua himself seemed rather nonchalant. In his previous life, he'd been worth hundreds of billions. Every transaction he handled involved hundreds of millions, sometimes even over 1 billion. The most these machines could earn him, top to bottom, was just a few million at most. Chump change, hardly worth glancing at. "Oh, right," Fang Shua added. "We probably can't handle all the factory equipment alone. Better not let outsiders take our profits. Why don't we bring Boss Qian in too? Let's all make money together." Hu Yuran immediately pulled out his phone and dialed Boss Qian. "Hey, Qian Lai, hurry over. We're gonna get rich." Boss Qian's real name was Qian Lai. Hu Yuran was so excited he called him by both first and last name without thinking. Hearing there was money to be made, Boss Qian naturally didn't waste time. Once he arrived, Hu Yuran quickly explained Fang Shua's idea. After listening, Qian Lai fell silent. After a long pause, he suddenly stomped his foot. "Last time I sold that shop, I made a good sum. Plus I've got 2 apartments. I'm selling them all. All told, that'll give me over 80,000 ready cash. Either we don't do this at all, or we go big." Qian Lai was indeed bold, and at this point, he practically worshipped Fang Shua. Whatever idea came from Fang Shua, he'd follow without a single doubt. Once everything was agreed upon, Hu Yuran set off to contact the manager of Jiangzhou food processing plant. With his extensive connections, it took him less than half a day to get in touch. They scheduled a time to inspect the equipment on site. At the appointed hour, the 3 men arrived together at Jiangzhou food processing plant. The plant's manager, Manager Niu, warmly received them and personally escorted them to examine the equipment. These machines were all imported. Years ago, to improve production efficiency, the factory had specially brought in this batch from abroad. Unfortunately, despite their advanced technology, no one knew how to operate them. There had been university-graduated technicians at the plant originally, but due to poor business performance, they jumped ship to other companies. Once the technicians left, the equipment became useless. Now facing a financial crisis, the plant manager decided to sell off the imported machinery at a steep discount. Better to get some cash now than let them gather dust. Hu Yurin and Qian Lai knew nothing about machinery. They weren't in this line of work, and neither had ever studied mechanical engineering. But Feng Shuo was different. Though he looked under 30, his soul was over 100 years old. With 2 lifetimes behind him, his vision and experience were unmatched. He wasn't a mechanical expert either, but after seeing and observing so much, he could still tell quality apart. This set of imported equipment had all its core components, assembly, and manufacturing completed overseas. The factory had bought fully integrated imported systems. Because it wasn't designed for the domestic market, all labels and control buttons on the machines were in foreign languages. No wonder no one dared use them. Those technical terms alone were enough to confuse anyone. The machines were nearly 90% new. According to manager Nyo, the technician hadn't even stayed a full year before quitting. After he left, the machines had never been turned on again. The equipment was heavily covered in dust, and due to the factory staff's lack of knowledge on maintenance, some buttons and switches had already severely corroded. But these were minor issues, easily fixed with replacements. For Feng Shuo, though, this was the perfect excuse to drive the price down. He frowned, stroked his chin, then turned to manager Nyo and said, "Mr. Nyo, how come your equipment is so badly worn out? Have you just been leaving these machines here neglected all this time?" Manager Nyo gave an embarrassed smile. "Nobody could use them anyway. They were just taking up space, so we moved them here. Mr. Fong, these are all imported machines, covered in foreign letters. Even our former technician said this kind of equipment doesn't exist domestically." Feng Shuo shook his head, wearing a look of clear disdain. "You're right, they are imported, no doubt about that. And yes, such equipment isn't available locally. But look at this, your machines are practically broken down. I'm not even sure they'd still work." He sighed and shook his head again. "With no proper maintenance, the equipment's severely damaged. Even if I buy it, it might just turn into a pile of scrap metal." With that, he waved at Hu Yurin and Qian Lai. "Old Hu, old Qian, let's go. What a waste of a trip. Too bad, really too bad." Hu Yurin and Qian Lai were momentarily confused. Wasn't Feng Shuo the one who specifically brought them here to buy these machines? How could they be leaving without even discussing the deal? Both were straightforward men, not quick to catch subtle tricks. They didn't realize Feng Shuo was putting on an act, a calculated performance for manager Nyo's benefit. Still, trusting Feng Shuo implicitly, they didn't question it. With a quick acknowledgement, they followed him toward the exit. Manager Nyo panicked immediately. After finally finding a potential buyer, if they walked away now, who knew when another would come along? The factory was facing severe financial problems. If funds weren't secured soon, the plant would have no choice but to shut down. He quickly rushed ahead, blocking Feng Shuo's path. "Mr. Feng, Boss Feng, can we please talk this over one more time?" This was exactly what Feng Shuo had been waiting for. He stopped, turned around, and looked at manager Nyo. "What more is there to discuss?" Manager Nyo said hurriedly, "These machines are truly high quality. With equipment like this, you can save a huge amount on labor costs. Sure, they don't look great, but I guarantee they're fully functional. How about this? I'll give you my rock bottom price. I have 3 sets here. Individually, each is 80,000. But if you take all 3 at once, I'll let you have them for 220,000 total. How does that sound?" Chapter 41, Insufficient Balance. Hu Yurin and Qian Lai, standing to the side, were utterly stunned. Even though they weren't experts, they both knew that Jiangzhou Food Processing Factory had spent a fortune importing these machines. It wasn't just one set. Each single set had cost over 2 million. Now manager Nyo was selling all 3 sets together for only 2.2 million? That meant Feng Shuo was practically getting 2 sets for free. Yet Feng Shuo shook his head, flipping his 5 fingers twice. 1.5 million, and I'll take them all. Hearing this, Hu Yurin and Qian Lai nearly choked on their own saliva. They turned to stare at Feng Shuo simultaneously, thinking he must be out of his mind. A price of 2.2 million for 3 sets was already an unbelievable bargain, yet he dared slash it by another 700,000? Manager Nyo frowned bitterly. "Boss Feng, you can't haggle like this. When I imported this equipment, just one machine cost me 2.2 million. Now I'm offering you all 3 for less than that, and you want to knock off another 700,000? Feng Shuo shrugged indifferently. "Like I said earlier, your machines are badly corroded. Once I haul them back, there'll be repair costs, calibration, testing, the list goes on. These are all expenses. Besides, I can't even guarantee whether your machines will work properly." Manager Nyo fell silent, as if wrestling with an inner conflict. After a long pause, he gritted his teeth, steeled his resolve, and said, "All right, let's meet halfway, 2 million. Boss Feng, let's call it friendship. What do you say?" Feng Shuo didn't answer immediately. He hummed thoughtfully for a moment, then turned to Hu Yurin. "Old Hu, what do you think?" Hu Yurin blinked, completely unsure how to respond. But staying silent wasn't an option. He nodded hesitantly. I think it could work." Then Feng Shuo turned to Qian Lai. "And you, old Qian?" Qian Lai was even more bewildered, but instinctively nodded. "Yeah, I guess so too." Feng Shuo sighed. "Fine. Since neither of you has any objections, we'll go with that. Manager Nyo, I'll take the friendship deal. 2 million it is." Hu Yurin and Qian Lai exchanged glances, their admiration for Feng Shuo now boundless. Only now did they finally understand. The entire act Feng Shuo had put on moments ago was merely a tactic to drive the price down. Even if Feng Shuo had accepted the original price without haggling, reselling these 3 units would still yield a huge profit. Yet he hadn't stopped there. He pushed the negotiation to the very edge. 2 million was likely the absolute bottom line manager Neo could accept. Any lower, and the deal would have collapsed. Now this was business negotiation done right. When it came to claiming what was rightfully yours, not a single cent should be given up. This experience taught Xian Lai and Hu Yuren a valuable lesson. Manager Neo, I'm buying your equipment, but I won't be moving them today. I need to clear space in my warehouse first. Once I'm ready, I'll send trucks to pick them up. I can give you 400,000 as a deposit now, and pay the remaining balance in full on the day of pickup. But don't worry, I'll only need 2 or 3 days at most. It won't take long. Relieved that the equipment was finally sold, Manager Neo readily agreed. Feng Shua was now his golden customer. Whatever he said went. He even assigned subordinates to guard the machines around the clock, forbidding anyone else from approaching. Feng Shua took out his bank card and handed it to Manager Neo. Go ahead and charge 400,000, then issue me a receipt. I've prepared a purchase agreement. Sign it after you receive the deposit. This agreement protects both parties. If I back out, the deposit becomes a penalty fee. If you sell the equipment to someone else, you must return my deposit and pay me an equal amount in compensation. Seeing Feng Shua so generous, paying 400,000 upfront as deposit, Manager Neo had no reason to refuse the contract. Happily, he took the card from Feng Shua and instructed his accountant to process the transfer. But unexpectedly, something went wrong. After several failed attempts, the accountant looked up, confused. Insufficient balance on the card. At those words, Feng Shua's expression flickered. Insufficient balance? How is that possible? His earnings from running the Frog Hot Pot restaurant, plus the money from selling the shop, and the winnings from his bet with Long Wanqing, all totaled 530,000. After paying 60,000 for Guogua's tuition and spending another 50,000 replacing household furniture and appliances, there should still have been 420,000 left in the account. But Feng Shua was no ordinary man. Having weathered storms far greater than this, he didn't lose composure. Taking the card back from the accountant, he chuckled. Ah, what a memory I have. I paid my supplier earlier today. No wonder the balance is low. He turned to Hu Yuren and said, Old Hu, I'll trouble you to cover the deposit for now. Hu Yuren nodded, took out his own bank card, and let the other side swipe 400,000. After the deposit was paid, Manager Neo and Feng Shua jointly signed the purchase agreement. They exchanged farewells and went their separate ways. On the way back, Hu Yuren couldn't help but whisper, Brother Feng, did something come up? Your bank account actually has no money. Feng Shua's expression darkened slightly. He already guessed what had happened, but he didn't say it aloud, only replied indifferently. Oh, it's nothing. I just brought the wrong card. Hu Yuren understood that Feng Shua probably didn't want to talk about it, so he didn't press further. When Feng Shua returned home, he finally stopped pretending and revealed a face full of gloom. The bank account belonged jointly to him and Lin Feng. Besides himself, only Lin Feng could access it. Without asking, he already knew. Lin Feng had withdrawn all the money. He didn't know why Lin Feng had taken the money, but whatever her reason, shouldn't she have at least informed him first? Yet Lin Feng hadn't even bothered to notify him. Clearly, she didn't respect him at all. This reminded him again of his brother-in-law Lin Bing buying a house. Back then, Lin Feng had quietly taken all their hard-earned savings and given them to Lin Bing. After the house was purchased, the property deed listed only Lin Guoxiong, Zhou Ping, and Lin Bing. Not once did they mention repaying the money. Until today, not a single cent had been returned. Now, it was happening all over again. What angered Feng Shua most was that Lin Feng kept talking about divorcing him. If they were already separating, then by what right did she silently withdraw every penny from their shared account? Moreover, wasn't she always seen with Guan Yinshui these days? If she really needed money, why not ask Guan Yinshui? Why always touch the family funds whenever there was trouble? Just what did he, Feng Shua, mean in Lin Feng's eyes? Soon, Feng Shua composed himself and suppressed the rage within. After all, Guogua would be coming home from school soon. He didn't want his daughter to sense anything was wrong. As for Lin Feng, he decided he would confront her the next day and demand a clear explanation. Chapter 42, Gloomy. After Guogua came home, Feng Shua noticed she seemed to be in low spirits. He asked gently, Guogua, what's wrong? Did something upsetting happen? Guogua shook her head and whispered, Dad, our school is organizing a fall outing next week. Feng Shua chuckled. That's good news. Why do you look so gloomy then? But the teacher said every kid has to pay 2,000 yuan for the activity fee. We don't have that kind of money, Guogua said dejectedly, hanging her head. Seeing his daughter's sadness, Feng Shua felt a pang of pain in his heart. He scooped her up into his arms at once. Is that all? 2,000 yuan? We're not short on that kind of money. Listen, Guogua, Dad is working hard to make money. Before long, you won't ever need to worry about money again. And our family will keep getting better and better. Dad promises you, before you know it, we'll buy our own car and move into a bigger house. Your current room is too small. Once we move, your room will become huge. Really, really big. Guogua's eyes lit up with longing. Really? Can we actually get a car and move into a bigger house? Of course, Feng Shua laughed. If the equipment resale went smoothly, he would earn at least 2 to 3 million yuan. With that sum, cars and houses were no longer concerns. At the moment, housing prices had only just started rising. Buying a 150 square meter apartment in the city center, including renovation, wouldn't cost more than a little over 1 million yuan. As for a car, anything below 3 or 400,000 yuan, excluding million yuan supercars like Porsches or Ferraris, was affordable without strain. Even those million yuan supercars weren't entirely out of reach for Feng Shua. It was simply that buying one now wasn't practical. They weren't unaffordable, but their maintenance costs were high. Once he'd built a solid foundation, Picking one up for fun wouldn't be impossible. Hearing her father's words, Guogua instantly brightened up. Later, Feng Shuo went to the bank and withdrew 2,000 yuan in cash. He placed it in an envelope and tucked it into Guogua's backpack. Relieved that she wouldn't miss the trip due to lack of money, Guogua was overjoyed. Usually quiet during meals, today she chattered endlessly to Feng Shuo about school life. Feng Shuo didn't interrupt. Instead, he smiled quietly and listened attentively. He wanted to learn more about Guogua's daily life at school. This kind of communication was important. Dad, I've already caught up on all the classes I missed. The teacher praised me for being smart, and the other kids all want to be my friends. Guogua sounded proud. Her inner academic talent was gradually awakening. Most of the kids in class like to play with me, but there's this one fat boy who's really annoying. He always picks on me, calls me poor trash, says my parents are laid-off workers, and insults us as lowly commoners. He says his dad is a big boss and they're super rich. He never takes the school bus. His dad drives a BMW to drop him off every day. Oh, and he also said the principal treats his dad very politely. Feng Shuo couldn't help but sneer inwardly. The principal was undoubtedly someone who worshipped money. Of course he'd be courteous to anyone wealthy. As for arriving in a BMW, that wasn't exactly something worth bragging about. Still, Feng Shuo had anticipated that Guogua might encounter classmates like this. After all, most families who could afford private elementary schools were well off. Among them were students genuinely from wealthy families, who looked down on others with lesser means, acting superior because of their money. No matter where you went, social hierarchies existed. In school, top students looked down on strugglers, the rich sneered at the poor. It was natural, unavoidable. Yet experiencing such things might not be bad for his daughter. If she learned how to deal with it now, she'd handle such people with ease in the future. Besides, everything had two sides. Putting aside the negative aspects, the private school did offer strong academics, excellent facilities, and a learning environment far superior to ordinary public schools. Growing up in such an environment would surely benefit Guogua in the long run. Feng Shuo deliberately refrained from teaching Guogua how to respond to disdainful attitudes. He believed letting her face setbacks first, then guiding her afterward, would leave a deeper impression. After dinner, Guogua returned to her room. Feng Shuo walked deliberately into the kitchen, took out his phone, and dialed Lin Feng's number. When do you have time? I want to talk to you, Feng Shuo said calmly. He had cooled down now, no longer as angry as before. Some things can't be solved by getting angry. The best way to handle them is to calmly understand what exactly happened and then think about how to respond. Lin Feng seemed to have expected Feng Shuo would contact her, so she agreed to meet him tomorrow during lunch break at a cafe near her company. It worked out perfectly, since Feng Shuo had important matters in the morning. Meeting after work was ideal. The next day, Feng Shuo sent Guogua off in the minivan, reminding her carefully not to lose the 2,000 yuan. Then he met up with Hu Yuren and Qian Lai. Over the next 2 or 3 days, they had to find a buyer, finalize the price, arrange for the cargo pickup, and pay the final installment to manager Niu. Based on Feng Shuo's memories and experiences from his previous life, precisely finding the right buyer wasn't a difficult task. In his mind, there were several companies that would be suitable buyers. The key now was, whoever offered the highest price would get it. Among these potential buyers, the one with the strongest financial backing, largest scale, and most likely to offer a high price was Weimei Foods Company, Ltd. This was a joint venture company, with foreign investors holding 70%. All senior management positions were held by foreigners, while middle and lower-level staff were Chinese, and virtually all laborers were locals from Jiangzhou. This kind of joint venture structure and operating model was very common and widespread at the time. In fact, this situation arose out of necessity, as domestic enterprises had just gone through state-owned enterprise reforms and lacked advanced management methods and systems. Therefore, the country could only attract foreign investment to introduce advanced foreign management concepts and mechanisms, modify them appropriately, and develop management models suited to local conditions. In his previous life, Feng Shuo had spent several years studying abroad, specializing in enterprise management. Hu Yuren had long cooperated with Weimei Foods, so their relationship was good. He easily contacted the company's responsible person and took Feng Shuo and Qian Lai to Weimei Foods to discuss the equipment purchase. On the way there, Hu Yuren suddenly asked, "Brother Feng, there's something I've always wondered about. If Jiangzhou Food Processing Plant is in such a hurry to sell their equipment, why don't they just sell it directly to Weimei? Why go through us at a lower price?" Feng Shuo sighed. Bureaucratism and conservative thinking. These are what ruin everything. Chapter 43. Consider it. Hu Yuren and Qian Lai both looked confused. What do you mean? The reason is actually simple. The Jiangzhou Food Processing Plant was originally a state-owned enterprise. It went through restructuring later, but the upper management remained the same, never changed. They have serious bureaucratic thinking. Deep down, they look down on Weimei, a joint venture between Chinese and foreign capital. On top of that, we're competitors, so they would never sell equipment to them. These managers stubbornly believe that selling equipment to Weimei is equivalent to surrendering to the other side. They don't care about the company's operations, but they are extremely concerned about their own dignity. Therefore, they absolutely won't cooperate with any peer enterprises. Feng Shuo couldn't help but sigh. I have to say, the current downfall of the Jiangzhou Food Processing Plant is directly the responsibility of its management. Before long, they'll go bankrupt and be eliminated by the ruthless market competition. Hu Yuren and Qian Lai had never doubted anything Feng Shuo said before. Although they felt a company as large as the Jiangzhou Food Processing Plant shouldn't possibly go bankrupt, since Feng Shuo had stated it so clearly, it must be true. Hu Yuren's eyes sparkled with cunning as he lowered his voice and whispered, "Brother Feng, If the Jiangzhou food processing plant really goes under, do you think we might get a chance to pick up something cheap? Feng Shuo glanced at Hu Yuran. Perhaps after spending so much time following him, the man had finally started developing some business sense. Actually, what Hu Yuran had just suggested was exactly what Feng Shuo had been thinking. Once the processing plant shut down, the factory would be abandoned, and all machinery, assembly lines, and equipment would be treated as scrap metal, waiting for someone to come and recycle them. Valuable things were often buried beneath piles of junk. To Feng Shuo, these unwanted scraps were treasures that could bring fortune, but there was still some time before the factory went bankrupt. His immediate task now was to accumulate funds and prepare thoroughly. When the right moment came, he would need to act decisively and beat others to the punch. As they arrived outside Wei Mei Company, preparing to enter, by sheer coincidence, they ran into Long Wanqing walking out. The unexpected encounter left everyone momentarily stunned. After a few seconds, Feng Shuo was the first to recover. "Miss Long, what a coincidence." Long Wanqing quickly regained her composure and gave a faint nod. "I'm here to discuss cooperation. Didn't expect to run into you. Are you here on business too, Mr. Feng?" Feng Shuo smiled and nodded. "Yes, to make a deal." "I see. Then I wish you smooth sailing." With that, Long Wanqing took a pair of sunglasses from her pocket and put them on. She was already exceptionally beautiful, with an aloof aura. Now, with the sunglasses, she looked even more stunning and striking, like a true domineering CEO. "Thanks for the good wishes." Feng Shuo slightly bowed and proceeded forward with Hu Yuran and Qianlai. Just as they were about to step through the entrance of Wei Mei Foods, Long Wanqing suddenly called out, "Mr. Feng, please wait a moment." Feng Shuo stopped and turned around. "Miss Long, is there something else?" Long Wanqing removed her sunglasses and walked up to Feng Shuo. "May I ask what kind of deal you're making with Wei Mei?" Based on her understanding of Feng Shuo, he always managed to surprise people. He carried himself with a confidence that seemed to control everything, yet remained mysterious. That's why Long Wanqing had developed a certain interest in him and had been keeping an eye on him all along. She had come to Wei Mei because they were about to launch a major project, one that, once initiated, would significantly reshape the landscape of Jiangzhou's food industry. So Long Wanqing wanted to invest in their project. If the collaboration succeeded, it would become Longjia Capital's most successful investment since its founding, instantly elevating the firm's scale and status. Therefore, Long Wanqing took this negotiation very seriously. However, Wei Mei was a joint venture, different from domestic companies. They weren't short on funds. Moreover, the foreign executives and management were wary of local venture capital firms, so the talks hadn't worked out. Meeting Feng Shuo had initially seemed like nothing more than a coincidence, and she hadn't thought much of it. But suddenly, inspiration struck. She remembered his unusual capabilities and decided to stop him, curious about the nature of his business with Wei Mei. She knew Feng Shuo was no ordinary man. Any deal important enough to bring him here was likely extraordinary. That's why she called him back, to find out exactly what he was doing. Perhaps within his transaction lay an indirect opportunity for her to reopen negotiations with Wei Mei. Of course, Feng Shuo had no idea about Long Wanqing's hidden motives. Besides, his deal wasn't something he needed to keep secret. Without hesitation, he replied, "I'm here to sell equipment." Long Wanqing's eyes lit up instantly. A faint, pleasing smile appeared on her otherwise cool face. "Mr. Feng, would you mind giving me a few minutes? Let's sit down and talk in detail." Feng Shuo thought for a moment, then nodded in agreement. He knew full well that Long Wanqing wouldn't approach him without purpose, but selling equipment wasn't something that couldn't wait. He might as well give her a few minutes to see what she really wanted. So the four of them found a nearby open-air dessert shop and sat around a round table. "Mr. Feng, could you tell me exactly what kind of equipment you're selling?" Long Wanqing asked straight to the point. "I went to the Jiangzhou food processing plant yesterday and bought 3 sets of imported equipment from manager Niu," Feng Shuo said frankly. This was something Long Wanqing could easily verify with just a little inquiry. There was no need to hide it. Besides, she and Feng Shuo weren't competitors. Telling her the truth posed no risk. Long Wanqing fell into brief thought, then said in surprise, "The equipment from Jiangzhou food processing plant? Could it be those machines they once spent a fortune importing from abroad?" Feng Shuo smiled. "Miss Long, you certainly know your details." "Of course I do. Wei Mei has been envious of these machines for a long time. They sent people multiple times to negotiate with the processing plant, but were turned down every time. What method did you use to actually get them to agree to sell you the machines?" Long Wanqing asked curiously. In preparation for collaborating with Wei Mei, Long Wanqing had done thorough research and gathered extensive inside information. Hearing her words, Hu Yuran and Qianlai once again felt deep admiration for Feng Shuo. It seemed his earlier judgment had been absolutely correct. The Jiangzhou food processing plant would never sell equipment to Wei Mei. It was truly ironic. The management sacrificed the factory's interests just to protect their own petty pride. No wonder such a company was headed for bankruptcy. At this moment, Feng Shuo merely smiled without elaborating further. Even though he had nothing to hide, he preferred not to reveal too many specific details. Long Wanqing didn't press him either, because excitement was already rising within her. She suddenly saw hope, a real chance to successfully collaborate with Wei Mei. After a brief silence, she spoke decisively. "Mr. Feng, I have an imperfect suggestion, one I hope you'll consider." Chapter 44, A Slip-Up. "Miss Long, please speak your mind," Feng Shuo said. "How about this? I'd like to buy all 3 sets of equipment you have on hand. As long as the price is reasonable, I won't haggle at all. I'll make sure you don't take a loss. What do you think?" Long Wanqing asked sincerely. Feng Shuo was momentarily stunned, but quickly regained his composure. Instead of asking why she suddenly wanted to buy his equipment, he replied directly, "We're practically old acquaintances by now. In business, it's always better to deal with someone familiar rather than a stranger. If Miss Long wants to buy my equipment, I certainly have no objections. But I should explain the specifics. These 3 sets are ready to use. Aside from replacing a few components, they're completely functional, no issues whatsoever, ready to operate straight away. The reason I came to Wei Mei with them is because I know they genuinely need such equipment. This kind of machinery is entirely imported from overseas. There's nothing like it made domestically. Of course, Wei Mei could choose not to buy from me and instead import it themselves. But you have to understand, industrial machinery isn't like other products. Complete sets of equipment are banned from import under our regulations. So the only way to bring in a full set is to disassemble it into parts, import them piece by piece, then reassemble locally. With all that back and forth, it wouldn't take less than 2 or 3 years to complete, even if everything goes smoothly. And that's assuming no complications. If a critical component gets held up at customs for a year, or even half a year, the delay would be even longer. That's exactly why Wei Mei has repeatedly approached Jiangzhou Food Processing Plant to negotiate purchasing machines. If there were any other viable options, they wouldn't be so desperate. Long Wanqing nodded after listening. I fully understand what you've described. You're absolutely right. This equipment is crucial for Wei Mei. They're currently using locally made machines from Jiangzhou, which have low output capacity and suffer heavy wear and tear. That's why they're so eager to upgrade their equipment. So Mr. Fong, give me a straightforward price. Fong Shuo remained calm and composed, his expression completely unreadable. 7 million per set, so 21 million for all 3. We've worked well together before, so I'll round down. 20 million. He delivered the figure so casually, as if he were quoting 2,000 instead of 20 million, so relaxed and offhand that it created the illusion he didn't care at all about the amount. In truth, Fong Shuo really didn't care about 20 million. In his previous life, he had handled deals worth hundreds of millions. A mere 20 million wasn't even enough to catch his attention. Hu Yuren couldn't help but spit out a mouthful of tea onto the floor when he heard Fong Shuo name the price of 20 million. 3 sets of equipment. They had just bought them yesterday for 2 million, less than 24 hours ago, and now Fong Shuo was reselling them for 20 million. 10 times the original price. 20 million. 20 million. Neither Hu Yuren nor Qian Lai had ever seen so much money in their entire lives. They hadn't just never seen it. They'd never even dared to dream of such a sum. Long Wanqing glanced at Hu Yuren. Despite her normally calm expression, she couldn't suppress an amused smile. Her eyes sparkled with humor, and she looked at Fong Shuo teasingly. Though Fong Shuo showed no change on the surface, inwardly he was shaking his head in dismay. They always say it's not the genius-level opponents you fear, it's the idiot teammates. Hu Yuren's dramatic reaction had not only exposed their bottom line, but also handed Long Wanqing ammunition to laugh at them. His overreaction had been too obvious. Long Wanqing was sharp. She instantly realized Fong Shuo's quoted price was heavily inflated. Truthfully, listing 20 million was Fong Shuo's usual tactic. He understood people like Long Wanqing perfectly. No matter how low a price you offered, they would always try to negotiate. Even though she had just emphatically declared she wouldn't haggle or let him take a loss. Only Fong Shuo knew that in business, such promises were nothing more than ghost stories meant to deceive. Merchants chased profit. Even saving 1 yuan would make them go to great lengths to bargain. To outsiders, this might seem stingy, but those involved knew best. The thrill of business lay precisely in these negotiations. Hu Yuren's outburst had put Fong Shuo in a passive position. There was almost no chance now of selling at a high price. Long Wanqing was a master negotiator, perhaps even sharper than most experts. Revealing a flaw in front of her meant only one outcome, being led around by the nose. Still, Fong Shuo was Fong Shuo. He quickly responded. He picked up his teacup, sipped slightly at the tea, then frowned. Damn, this tea's scalding. Old Hu, I've told you again and again, don't rush when drinking tea. Test the temperature first. He then flashed a smile. Sorry about that. Must have given you quite a laugh. Old Hu here is just impulsive by nature. Please don't take it personally. With that one sentence, he effortlessly defused the awkwardness. Long Wanqing couldn't help but look at Fong Shuo with growing admiration. She was increasingly convinced that Fong Shuo was no ordinary man. Under normal circumstances, anyone less composed would have let their emotions show plainly on their face when caught off guard like that. Those slightly more calculating might keep a neutral expression, but their subsequent behavior would clearly reveal a shift toward compromise or concession. Yet Fong Shuo remained utterly calm, smoothly finding a way to lighten the mood. Just this level of composure was something most people could never achieve. Even Long Wanqing had to admit she wasn't sure she could have handled it as well. After all, she was young, occasionally emotional herself. Had their roles been reversed today, and one of her own subordinates caused such a scene, she doubted she could have recovered with such grace. Still, while Fong Shuo managed to save face and ease the tension, the outcome of the negotiation was now obvious. He wouldn't reach his intended price. That said, Fong Shuo maintained a positive mindset. Even if he couldn't secure top dollar, he was confident Long Wanqing's offer would still be the highest possible, one far exceeding what Wei Mei could pay directly. He'd already figured out the situation. Long Wanqing, representing an investment firm, had come to Wei Mei seeking collaboration. But Wei Mei was a foreign-funded enterprise. They didn't lack capital. And apart from money, there was likely nothing else Long Wanqing could offer. When what you have isn't what the other party wants, cooperation naturally falls through. But if Long Wanqing acquired these machines from him, everything changed. These machines were exactly what Wei Mei desperately needed. With the equipment in hand, Long Wanqing would suddenly have leverage and the possibility of negotiation. In short, Long Wanqing was just as determined to obtain these machines. Her offer would certainly not be low. Mr. Fong, we business people value honesty and transparency. You naming a sky-high price like 20 million right off the bat, that's pushing it a bit too far, don't you think? I dislike beating around the bush, and I hate wasting time. I know very well how much these machines originally cost to import. Asking for 20 million is simply too greedy. Let me make this clear. I'm genuinely interested in acquiring your equipment. How about 10 million? Chapter 45. The deal is sealed. Upon hearing Long Wanqing's words, Hu Yuren finally realized how foolish he had just been. Fang Shuo had quoted 20 million, and Long Wanqing immediately slashed it in half. Although 10 million was still an enormous profit, it fell far short of their expectations. Miss Long, I admit my asking price of 20 million was a bit high, Fang Shuo said with clear dissatisfaction. But cutting me down by half, that's too harsh. Business isn't done this way. Seeing Fang Shuo's expression, both Hu Yuren and Qian Lai instantly tensed up, their four eyes fixed intently on the two. Here we go again. This was happening once more. The negotiation between Fang Shuo and Long Wanqing looked like nothing short of theatrical performance. Honestly, when these two negotiated, they seemed possessed by drama queens. One could only say the Oscars owed them both a small statue. They traded sharp remarks back and forth, appearing tense and confrontational, yet without a trace of real hostility. After a lengthy verbal sparring session, they eventually settled on 14 million. 2 million in cost, overnight multiplied sevenfold into 14 million. This kind of thing was simply dreamlike. Both Hu Yuren and Qian Lai secretly felt incredibly lucky to have met Fang Shuo. He seemed to have opened a new world for them, revealing a completely different landscape of business they'd never imagined. Until now, each had been complacent in their own little circles. One ran distribution, the other owned supermarkets. Compared to ordinary people, both considered themselves quite successful. Qian Lai even owned several properties. Life had treated him well. Yet only today did they realize they had been mere frogs at the bottom of a well all along. Now this was what business truly meant. Fang Shuo was the real deal. Turning 2 million into 14 million? If they hadn't seen it with their own eyes, who would ever believe such a story? Mr. Fong, our transaction is essentially settled, Long Wanqing suggested. But since we're doing business, certain formalities should be observed. Better to be petty first than a gentleman later. How about we sign a purchase agreement? Fang Shuo wasn't surprised she raised the request. In fact, even if she hadn't, he would have brought it up himself. Such documentation protected both buyer and seller, a win-win arrangement. A deposit of 400,000. You can transfer that directly to Old Hu. As for when you want the equipment, just let me know anytime. I'll arrange a truck to pick it up from Jiangzhou food processing plant and deliver it straight to you. He asked her to send the money to Hu Yuren because yesterday's deposit had come from Hu. He didn't want to owe anyone anything. There is one condition I'd like added to the purchase agreement, Fang Shuo added. Long Wanqing nodded as if reading his mind. Both said simultaneously, without hesitation, no disclosure of the transaction amount. They exchanged glances, then burst out laughing together. Fang Shuo was increasingly impressed. Long Wanqing suited his style perfectly. Her approach to work, her capabilities, they reminded him so much of himself back in the day. After signing the purchase agreement, Long Wanqing immediately wired 400,000 into Hu Yuren's account. Fang Shuo handed over the receipt issued by Jiangzhou food processing plant to Long Wanqing. Don't underestimate this piece of paper. It was Long Wanqing's bargaining weapon. With the deal finalized, Long Wanqing remained focused on finalizing her partnership talks. Hu Yuren and Qian Lai prepared to leave, as they each had matters to attend to back home. As Fang Shuo had already arranged to meet Lin Fong for lunch, he didn't rush off. He stayed behind, leisurely sipping his tea. Brother Fong, aren't you leaving? If you are, Old Hu and I can drop you off, Qian Lai offered. Not yet. I've got someone meeting me at noon. Also, I need to wait here for Long Wanqing. She should finish her talk soon. Qian Lai looked puzzled. But we've already closed our deal. Why wait for her? Fang Shuo smiled. Whether or not she successfully partners with Wei Mei determines whether our deal stands or falls. Hu Yuren and Qian Lai exchanged confused glances. Fang Shuo explained. Long Wanqing bought the equipment to gain leverage in negotiations with Wei Mei. Wei Mei needs this equipment, and Long Wanqing wants to collaborate with them. Thus, both sides have incentive to negotiate. But nothing in life is absolute. Even though I believe the chance of success is very high, unexpected things can still happen. If Long Wanqing secures the cooperation, our deal proceeds smoothly. But if she fails, she won't take the equipment. Qian Lai exclaimed in surprise. Wait, are you serious? We already signed the purchase agreement. She already paid the deposit. She bought my equipment as leverage for negotiation. If the negotiation fails, the equipment becomes worthless junk to her. Faced with losing 1.4 million on scrap metal versus writing off a 400,000 deposit, which do you think is the smarter choice? Finally, Qian Lai understood. He thought over 14 million was already secured, but Meishengdao, there were still so many uncertainties hanging in the balance. But don't worry too much. I'm only saying there's a slight chance something unexpected might happen. It's not very likely. Relax. Even if the deal with Long Wanqing falls through, we can always approach Wei Mei directly. Hearing Fang Shuo say this, Qian Lai and Hu Yuren immediately felt reassured. Now that they thought about it, Fang Shuo had already identified his target from the beginning and planned to approach them directly. At this moment, Hu Yuren said with obvious remorse, Fang brother, I'm really sorry. If I hadn't lost my composure earlier, Miss Long wouldn't have slashed your price so aggressively. Feng Shuo laughed it off. Who brother, it's already in the past. No need to dwell on it. Consider today's experience tuition. Making mistakes isn't scary. What's truly frightening is repeating the same mistake over and over. Just be more careful next time. Hu Yuren nodded, taking Feng Shuo's words to heart. Shortly after the trio parted ways, Feng Shuo received a call from Long Wanqing. With this batch of equipment, Long Wanqing successfully secured a partnership with Wei Mei. Long Jia would contribute technology as equity and provide 3 sets of equipment to Wei Mei, finalizing their cooperation agreement. Where are you? Never mind. I'll come find you. Long Wanqing sounded particularly lighthearted and cheerful. I'm still at that dessert shop from earlier. I haven't left yet. All right then, wait for me. A few minutes later, Long Wanqing arrived. She sat down beside Feng Shuo and asked curiously, I thought you'd already left. Why are you still here? Feng Shuo repeated what he had told Hu Yuren and Qianlai. After listening, Long Wanqing couldn't help but show a look of admiration and respect. She had originally thought he was just someone clever in small ways, but she never expected him to possess such foresight. His analytical skills were undoubtedly on par with her own. Hee, you're absolutely right. That's exactly what I had in mind, she said, then smoothly changed the topic. Fortunately, the outcome is satisfying. Everyone's happy. To celebrate the biggest investment deal since I started my business, I'd like to take you out for dinner. Without Feng Shuo's equipment, Long Wanqing would have found it extremely difficult to secure cooperation with Wei Mei, so treating him to a meal as a token of gratitude was only appropriate. Moreover, there were many aspects of Feng Shuo that intrigued her, mysteries she wanted to explore. She saw this as a perfect opportunity to better understand this man. Chapter 46. He's my younger brother. She had developed a strong interest in Feng Shuo and even felt a desire to recruit such a talented person. If she could bring him under her wing, the future development of Longjia would be truly promising. Sorry, I have an appointment. I need to go now. Let's have dinner together another time. Feng Shuo politely declined, as he had already made plans to meet Lin Feng. Long Wanqing was somewhat surprised by his refusal. Born into a wealthy family as the daughter of the chairman of Lung Hai Group, with excellent personal qualities, gorgeous looks, remarkable abilities, beauty, brains, and wealth, she was seen by others as nothing short of a goddess. In the entire city of Jiangzhou, countless men dreamed of receiving an invitation from Long Wanqing for a simple meal. Yet, she rarely took the initiative to invite a young man out, and this time her offer was turned down. Of course, she wasn't petty or overly sensitive. She simply found it unexpected, though she didn't dwell on it further. Still, whether he realized it or not, Feng Shuo had left a deep impression on her. All right then, we'll make plans next time, Long Wanqing said straightforwardly without pretense. Where are you headed? If it's on my way, I can give you a ride. Since he had already refused her invitation, turning down her kindness might seem too cold-hearted. He gave her the address, and Long Wanqing stood up decisively. Let's go. It's on my way. I'll take you there. 15 minutes later, Feng Shuo arrived at the agreed-upon coffee shop. He'd been here several times before. Whenever he got off work early, he would come here to wait for Lin Feng and surprise her after her shift. But sadly, since losing his job, he hadn't visited again. After thanking her, Feng Shuo opened the door and stepped out of the car. The moment his feet touched the ground, he heard Lin Feng calling from behind. Feng Shuo. He turned around to see Lin Feng hurrying toward him. As she approached, her gaze naturally fell upon Long Wanqing and the red Audi TT, carrying a complex expression in her eyes. Long Wanqing didn't even glance at Lin Feng. Instead, she smiled slightly at Feng Shuo. Let's make plans when you're free. I won't disturb you today. With that, she pressed the accelerator and sped away. Feng Shuo said quietly, let's go inside. Lin Feng suddenly asked, you two looked really close. What's your relationship with her? Feng Shuo glanced at Lin Feng but didn't answer her question. Instead, he walked straight into the coffee shop. Lin Feng gritted her teeth and followed closely behind. They found a small round table and sat facing each other. After a brief silence, Lin Feng broke the ice first. I know why you came. Yes, I withdrew the 420,000 yuan from our account. I had no choice. I had to use that money in an emergency. Feng Shuo asked sternly, I don't care about anything else. Just tell me, what did you use that money for? My younger brother injured someone, and the victim demanded compensation, or they'd press criminal charges against him. Mom, Dad, and Xiao Mei pooled everything they could, barely gathering 380,000 yuan. I happened to find out there was 420,000 yuan in the account, so I withdrew it all to help them. Feng Shuo frowned. 380,000 plus 420,000 makes 800,000. Their claim jumped to 800,000? Didn't I already negotiate it down to 300,000? Lin Feng looked embarrassed. Dad and my brother didn't trust you. They thought you were colluding with the victim to scam money from our family. So they went directly to the hospital to see Mr. Zhai. Things quickly escalated into an argument. Lin Bing nearly attacked him again, and it became a total mess. Eventually, Mr. Zhai brought in his lawyer, threatening to handle it legally. The lawyer issued a formal notice and presented bank statements showing medical expenses. The lawyer said if it goes to court, our family will have to cover all economic losses, and my brother will go to prison. Mr. Zhai offered one way out. If we compensate for all damages, he'll drop the criminal charges. My parents and Xiao Mei scraped together everything, but still only came up with 380,000. I was desperate to save Lin Bing, so I didn't think twice. I withdrew every penny from the bank account. Lin Bing is my biological brother. I couldn't just stand by and watch him suffer. Besides, we're still married. He's your brother-in-law too. Paying money to avoid disaster, keeping him out of jail. You wouldn't object to that, right? Fang Shuo didn't say a single word while listening quietly to Lin Fang's explanation. But inside, he was laughing bitterly. His in-laws and brother-in-law were absolutely the worst kind of people. He'd gone through great lengths negotiating to minimize the payout, only for them to doubt his intentions. Now look what happened. They had sabotaged their own situation through ignorance, and once again, Fang Shuo was expected to foot the bill for their foolishness. Being tied to this family truly tested how much bad luck one person could endure. Although Fang Shuo was angry and furious at the time, he had already successfully resold the equipment from the Jiangzhou food processing factory. With this single transaction, he would earn nearly 3 million yuan. Therefore, in comparison, that 400,000 yuan no longer seemed so significant. But this wasn't the first time something like this had happened. Previously, Lin Fang had secretly taken money from their household to help her parents and brother buy a house, acting without prior consultation. Yet this family was nothing but ungrateful. They never acknowledged his kindness, and after he fell on hard times, they treated him with nothing but disdain. Now, even if he paid out 420,000 yuan for Lin Bing's compensation, there was little chance he'd be remembered with gratitude. The next time they met, he'd still face mockery and cold remarks. Still, this incident had one upside. Lin Fang's actions served as a wake-up call for Fang Shuo. From now on, he needed to stay alert. Never again should he deposit the money he earned into their joint account. In his previous life, after divorcing Lin Fang, Lin Bing had caused trouble several more times, and their family had paid out large sums in compensation. He was certain Lin Bing wouldn't learn any lesson from this incident. This was a bottomless pit. No matter how much money you poured in, it would never be enough. Besides, all the money was earned by Fang Shuo himself. Why should he keep using his hard-earned cash to fill the black hole of Lin Guoxiong's family? And even if you did give them money, they'd never appreciate it. Pouring money into their hands was simply throwing it away. Thus, Fang Shuo made up his mind. He must open a separate bank account, or have one opened under someone else's name, and deposit all future earnings into that account. That way, even if he divorced Lin Fang in the future, this money would not be considered marital property and split accordingly. It wasn't that he was scheming or petty. It was simply because he refused to let his daughter miss out on enjoying the wealth he worked so hard for, only for it all to be devoured by the ungrateful Lin Guoxiong family. He was earning money to provide Guoguo with a comfortable life, to make up for the regrets of his past life, not to support a pack of ungrateful wretches. Fine, I understand what happened. This matter ends here. I won't pursue it further. And even if I did, your parents and your brother would never return the money to me. All these years, how often have they ever given back anything they've taken? Chapter 47, Former Colleague. Lin Fang frowned and said, Fang Shuo, you're being too harsh. They're my parents, my younger brother. When they're in trouble, how can I not help them? Besides, this money is our joint marital property. It's only natural for me to use it to help my brother. If I don't help him, he could go to prison. Fang Shuo had no desire to argue with Lin Fang anymore. In the past, for the sake of their marriage, he'd endured in silence. But now, with all affection gone and divorce already on the table, there was no reason for him to keep tolerating her. He nodded calmly. I've already said I won't pursue this matter. Ever since I lost my job, I did sink into depression for a long time, and your life hasn't been easy either. Consider these 40-odd thousand as compensation for what you've suffered over the years. The last time we failed to finalize the paperwork because of your brother's incident. If nothing urgent comes up again, let's head to the civil affairs office soon and get this done. I suppose your special someone must be waiting anxiously, right? Lin Fang hadn't expected Fang Shuo to bring up finalizing the divorce procedures himself. As far as she could recall, this was the first time since their marriage that he'd taken the initiative to suggest it. All along, every decision in their household, big or small, had been hers to make. She rarely consulted Fang Shuo before acting. So when he suddenly started urging her to handle the paperwork, she felt strangely uneasy. But quickly, she remembered something Guan Yunshui had asked her to do. She needed Fang Shuo to say a few good words for her in front of Long Wanqing, convincing her to invest in Shufei industry. The company was now in crisis. Whether it could survive depended entirely on securing an investor soon. Although inwardly displeased, Lin Fang forced herself to stay calm and said, let's slow down on this divorce talk for now. After all, we were married once, and we have a daughter who's nearly grown. We can't just split up like that. Let's set the divorce aside for now. There's an important matter I need your help with. Fang Shuo asked, what important matter? You seem quite familiar with Miss Long, don't you? I've seen you getting out of her car twice. I need you to put in a good word for me with her and ask her to invest in our company. Our Shufei industry has always operated well with solid profits. We wouldn't even consider seeking investment if we weren't facing a serious crisis now. We've already submitted a cooperation proposal to Longjia, but without Miss Long's approval, her subordinates wouldn't dare agree. Right now, Shufei's situation is urgent, so you... Before Lin Fang could finish, Fang Shuo interrupted. Enough, stop right there. Miss Long Wanqing and I aren't even ordinary friends. Our relationship is purely business. What I say means nothing to her. As for what you saw, it must have been a misunderstanding. She was just giving me a ride, nothing more. You shouldn't jump to conclusions based on seeing me get out of her car. Lin Fang was stunned. You really have no connection with her? Of course not. Who is she and who am I? We live in completely different worlds. How could there possibly be any personal link between us? Fang Shuo waved his hand dismissively. I can't help you with this. You and your someone special should find another way. And from now on, don't come to me with things like this. I have no obligation to solve your problems. Hearing Lin Fang's request, Fang Shuo found it both infuriating and absurd. What exactly did she think he was? Did she still believe he would obediently follow her orders like in the old days? They were already heading toward divorce, yet she still expected him to jump through hoops for her. And now, she wanted him to help Guan Yunshui, the man who had tried to undermine him. Only a fool would do that. Slowly rising to his feet, he said, "If there's nothing else, I'll leave now. Let me know whenever you decide to go to the civil affairs office. Also, I've already sorted out the property division. No need for you to bother calculating anything." With that, he turned and walked out of the cafe. Long before this moment, he'd made up his mind. In their divorce, he would walk away with nothing. The house and everything else, he'd leave it all to Lin Fong. As the saying goes, even a single day of marriage carries lifelong kindness. Though their relationship ended in divorce, he didn't want bitterness between them. Besides, she was Guo's mother. Parting on good terms mattered. Money meant little to Feng Shuo. After all, having lived 2 lifetimes, making money wasn't difficult for him, just a matter of time. Leaving all the assets to Lin Fong, whether she valued them or not, would at least mark a clean end to their chapter together. After leaving the cafe, Feng Shuo walked toward the roadside, preparing to hail a taxi to go home. Just then, a navy blue BMW suddenly sped up and stopped right in front of him. As the car came to a halt, a young man about Feng Shuo's age pushed open the door and stepped out. Tall and slim, the man wasn't particularly handsome, yet he gave off an air of quiet refinement. Dressed in a pristine white suit, he looked spotless, on the surface, at least. But Feng Shuo knew better. This man was far from clean. His name was Ning Yuxiang, an old acquaintance of Feng Shuo's. They had been college classmates and later worked at the same company after graduation. Yet their relationship had always been hostile, marked by relentless rivalry. Or rather, it was all one-sided rivalry driven solely by Ning Yuxiang. He held himself in exceedingly high regard, believing himself unparalleled. But Feng Shuo had consistently outperformed him in every aspect back in school, which fueled Ning's deep-seated jealousy. After graduation, Feng Shuo earned the title of top salesperson at the company year after year, leaving Ning constantly overshadowed and unable to rise. Desperate, Ning tried every trick in the book, but failed each time. What annoyed him most, however, was that Feng Shuo had married a beautiful wife and had a lovely daughter, while his own wife was plain-looking, older, short-tempered, and they remained childless after many years of marriage. Consumed by intense jealousy, Ning lost all reason. Unable to win through fair competition, he resorted to underhanded tactics. In secret, he schemed and framed Feng Shuo, ultimately succeeding in getting him fired. Feng Shuo, once at the peak, fell into despair and ruin. With Feng Shuo out of the way, Ning finally claimed the top sales title. Now, he was thriving, basking in success, living the dream. From afar, he spotted Feng Shuo and deliberately drove over, stopping right in front of him. Well, isn't this my old classmate Feng Shuo? Long time no see. How have you been? Ning Yuxiang wore a smug grin. The more down on his luck Feng Shuo appeared, the more satisfied and delighted he felt. Seeing Ning Yuxiang, Feng Shuo's expression darkened. Though he had lived 2 lifetimes, accumulating nearly a century's worth of experience, his hatred toward Ning Yuxiang remained as sharp as ever. Had it not been for Ning, Feng Shuo would never have watched his daughter die helplessly from illness in his previous life, burdened with regret until his last breath. Chapter 48. Death by talking too much. When enemies meet, their eyes blaze with hatred. Although Feng Shuo's heart was churning like a stormy sea, impossible to calm, on the surface he showed no sign of disturbance. He was no longer the man he used to be. With over 100 years of experience across 2 lifetimes, he would never let his emotions show plainly on his face. Ning Yuxiang, long time no see, Feng Shuo said indifferently. How have you been lately? Making money somewhere? Ning Yuxiang asked, as if genuinely curious, but quickly answered himself. Look at my memory. Of course you've been blacklisted from HR, unable to survive in this industry anymore. I heard you've been miserable at home lately, drinking and sleeping all day, and your daughter recently fell seriously ill. It must be hard to get by. Can you even survive on your wife's salary of 1 or 2,000 a month? He sighed heavily. To be honest, I feel partly responsible for how far you've fallen. It's been weighing on me, and I've always hoped for a chance to make it up to you. Since we've run into each other, fate must be giving me that opportunity to finally correct a past regret. Ning Yuxiang pulled a Coach leather wallet from his pocket. As the company's star salesperson now, earning a steady 100,000 yuan per month, owning a luxury wallet was nothing out of the ordinary. He rummaged through it and finally pulled out a single 1 yuan banknote. Here, this is my compensation to you. I'm truly merciful. I usually only give 10 cents to beggars. But because of our history, I'll give 10 times more. As he spoke, he waved the 1 yuan bill in front of Feng Shuo. Feng Shuo calmly stared at Ning Yuxiang. 1 yuan? This was outright humiliation. Did he actually see him as a beggar? Seeing that Feng Shuo didn't take it, Ning urged. Take it, don't be shy. 1 yuan is already a fortune for trash like you. Don't thank me. It's what I should do. With that, he flicked his wrist and tossed the note onto Feng Shuo's face. Then, suddenly unable to contain himself, he burst into laughter. Ha ha, seeing you like this makes me so damn happy. Feng Shuo, you were once so glorious, but now? You're just a homeless dog with nowhere to go. Alright, I don't have time to waste words on you. I've got important things to do. You keep struggling at the very bottom of society, while I rise to glory. Oh, by the way, let me tell you, our company is going public. We've secured a deal with a venture capital firm, only 1 contract away from sealing it. The boss has promised all senior employees shares of the original stock. When that happens, my worth will at least double. I'll become a shareholder in a listed company. How about that? Jealous. Ning Yuxiang wore an ecstatic expression, eyes shining with dreams of the future. With a burst of joyful laughter, he returned to his car, slammed the accelerator, and sped away. Watching his departing car, Feng Shuo couldn't help but let out a cold smirk. As the saying goes, villains die from talking too much. Perhaps Ning Yuxiang believed that Feng Shuo was now completely incapable of being a threat, so in his excitement, he'd spoken too freely. But what Ning didn't know was that Feng Shuo was no longer the same person. Reborn into a second life, he had his own goals, and he was steadily working toward them. Let alone anything else. Even just closing this equipment deal, he'd secure over 2 million yuan. That alone would make him wealthy by Jiangzhou standards. Even with a monthly salary of 100,000, Ning Yuxiang would need to work non-stop, without spending a penny, for 2 years to earn that much. He had absolutely no right to gloat before Feng Shuo. If Feng Shuo wanted Ning Yuxiang dead, he had countless ways to make it happen. With memories from his previous life, combined with decades more wisdom and cunning, Ning Yuxiang's wouldn't stand a chance. Right now, though, bringing Ning crashing down from his high position would still require some time. Unfortunately for Ning, he'd talked too much, giving Feng Shuo the perfect chance to crush him without spilling a drop of blood, and in the shortest possible time. In this era, venture capital firms weren't common. In Jiangzhou, large-scale investment companies could be counted on one hand. Long Wanqing was a seasoned professional in investment banking. Feng Shuo only needed to casually ask her, and he'd quickly learn which firm was investing in Ning's company. In his previous life, after leaving the company, he'd lost all trace of Ning Yuxiang, so he didn't know how the man had ended up. But based on what he knew of Ning, the guy was absolutely corrupt. A simple investigation would uncover plenty of skeletons. Feng Shuo's plan was simple: provide the information to the investment company. Once they saw the evidence, they would naturally launch an investigation into Ning Yuxiang. Once problems were uncovered, the consequences would range from termination of cooperation to filing a police report. In any case, Ning Yuxiang's fate was already sealed. Feng Shuo glanced at the 1 yuan banknote lying on the ground and slightly raised the corners of his mouth into a mocking smirk. By then, who would be giving whom 1 yuan remained to be seen. The next day, Feng Shuo rented 3 large trucks and headed to Jiangzhou food processing plant to collect the goods. He had already paid a deposit of 400,000 yuan. Now he only needed to settle the remaining 1.6 million. Hu Yurin and Qian Lai paid the outstanding amount, and Manager Niu beamed with delight as he directed his workers to load the machines onto the trucks and haul them away. He sold those expensive imported machines like scrap copper and iron, yet wore a cheerful expression. Although it sounded unbelievable, Feng Shuo knew that during that era, many senior officials in state-owned enterprises acted exactly like this. After all, these assets were purchased with public funds. Selling them at low prices caused no personal pain. The current Manager Niu resembled nothing more than a wasteful rich second-generation brat squandering wealth accumulated by previous generations. But this worked out perfectly. If not for such recklessness, Feng Shuo would never have had the chance to find this bargain, much less make a profit. He directly instructed the truck drivers to deliver the equipment to the warehouse of Weimei Food Company, Limited, but told them not to unload just yet. He wouldn't hand over the equipment until Long Wanqing settled the full payment. This was business etiquette. No matter how close the relationship, rules must be respected. Of course, Long Wanqing was also someone who valued credibility and integrity. As soon as the machines arrived, she immediately notified her finance department to transfer the remaining balance into Feng Shuo's account. Payment received. Pleasant doing business. Feng Shuo sent her a message. After thinking for a moment, he sent another. Could you do me a favor and look into something? Which venture capital firm in Jiangzhou is about to cooperate with Jiangzhou Mingrui Medical Instruments Company, Limited? I'd like to know the contact information of the project lead at that VC firm. Mingrui Medical Instruments Company, Limited was where Feng Shuo had previously worked, an established medical equipment sales company with significant scale in Jiangzhou. A few seconds later, he received a 3-character reply from Long Wanqing, Longjia. Me. Chapter 49, she's been picked up. 3 simple words conveyed everything. Feng Shuo hadn't expected that the company preparing to cooperate with Ning Yuxiang would turn out to be Longjia. What a coincidence. A faint smile appeared on his face as he began drafting a message, intending to ask Long Wanqing to look further into Ning Yuxiang's background. But just before pressing send, he hesitated. After careful thought, he ultimately deleted the message. Long Wanqing was exceptionally intelligent. If he sent her such an odd message out of nowhere, she'd surely grow suspicious. With just a little investigation, she might uncover his connection to Mingrui and to Ning Yuxiang. Knowing her personality, she would definitely launch an investigation. Once she discovered the problems, she'd certainly terminate cooperation with Mingrui. But then, it would mean Feng Shuo owed her a favor. Even though exposing the issue would benefit Longjia, Feng Shuo's intentions were clearly self-serving. Besides, Long Wanqing could easily claim that she would have uncovered the truth even without Feng Shuo's tip. Their previous dealings had always been led by Feng Shuo. In this recent equipment deal, although Feng Shuo earned several times the profit, Long Wanqing now owed him a personal debt. After all, even without her help, Feng Shuo could still sell his equipment. But without Feng Shuo, Long Wanqing's collaboration project would have failed. Yet if Feng Shuo sent her this message outright, that favor between them would be erased. Long Wanqing could justify ending the partnership with Mingrui under the guise of defending Feng Shuo. Such a win-win opportunity was something Long Wanqing would never miss. No, this couldn't be done directly. He needed to find a more subtle, indirect approach. After thinking it through, Feng Shuo simply replied, thanks, and left it at that. Ning Yuxiang wasn't clean. Rather than launching an active investigation, it was better to let him expose his true nature himself. There was no need to rush. Ning wasn't going anywhere. Acting after a well-thought-out plan was the most reliable approach. Now that he had money, although he could use it as capital to make even more, the first thing Feng Shuo wanted to do was quickly buy a new apartment and a car. The entire purpose of earning money was to provide Guogua with a comfortable life. If he focused solely on making money while forgetting his original goal, he would merely become a money-making machine. And if that happened, his rebirth would have been meaningless. In his past life, he had once been worth billions. Money had meant nothing but numbers to him. Truly enjoying life and cherishing the time with his daughter was the real meaning behind being given a second chance. At this moment, the real estate market hadn't fully heated up yet, so prices weren't excessively high. A 100 square meter apartment in the best downtown location would cost at most 1 or 2 million yuan. Of course, anyone who could actually spend over 1 million yuan on a house was undoubtedly wealthy. Right now, Feng Shuo had nearly 3 million yuan in hand. If he decided to buy, he wouldn't settle for anything less than something truly satisfying. For just the two of them, himself and Guogua, a place around 100 square meters was ideal. Anything larger would be wasteful. Besides a home, he also wanted to purchase a car. Although Guogua had school buses for commuting, having their own vehicle would make weekend outings and holidays much more convenient. Moreover, as his business grew, owning a car wouldn't just serve transportation needs, it would also reflect status and value. How could you negotiate a deal worth hundreds of millions while driving a Jinhua minivan? It simply wasn't appropriate. How could clients trust you with major projects? Hu Renyu and Qian Lai both owned cars, but theirs were ordinary models worth no more than 100,000 yuan. The kind of car Feng Shuo had in mind was something like a Mercedes-Benz or Audi. He was someone who acted immediately once he made up his mind. So today, he decided to pick up his daughter from school and take her to view some apartments and cars. Whether it was housing or vehicles, Feng Shuo would consider his daughter's opinion as the primary factor. If his daughter liked something, he wouldn't hesitate, he'd buy it right away. But to his surprise, when he arrived at the school at dismissal time, the teacher told him that Guogua had already been picked up by her mother in the afternoon. Feng Shuo frowned involuntarily and immediately called Lin Feng. What do you mean? You took my daughter away without even telling me. Lin Feng replied coldly. We're still legally married. I don't need your permission to pick up our daughter. Besides, Guogua is my biological child. Is there any problem with me taking her out? Oh, by the way, since you called, let me inform you, Guogua will stay with me for a week, and I'll handle her pickups and drop-offs. Without waiting for Feng Shuo to respond, she hung up the phone. Feng Shuo couldn't help but feel annoyed, though there was nothing he could do. Lin Feng was right. They were still legally married, and she had the right to pick up their child. Moreover, Guogua was her biological daughter. There was no issue with her taking her away. Since she said it would be for a week, he might as well wait until then. He could start looking at houses and cars in the meantime. He'd make a note of anything he liked, and once his daughter returned, he'd bring her along to see them. Feng Shuo first called Hu Renyu because Old Hu had extensive connections and knew many people, including those in real estate. When buying property, getting a referral from someone you knew was always wise. In fact, the real estate sales industry had its share of under-the-table practices. Developers often didn't sell all their units, instead keeping several of the best-located, best-designed apartments in reserve. These properties were kept for special purposes, perhaps given as gifts to powerful figures later on, or sold as favors to others. The reason Feng Shuo reached out to Hu Renyu was precisely to get one of these reserved units from the developer. If he was going to spend money anyway, he might as well get the finest and most satisfactory option available. Hu Renyu immediately agreed. Without hesitation, he called his friend in real estate and arranged to meet at a designated spot. When Feng Shuo arrived at the meeting place, Hu Renyu was already there. From his introduction, this real estate friend used to work in distribution. Later, after saving up some capital, he switched to real estate. But this friend had poor judgment and invested his entire fortune into one property development project. Unfortunately, the project's sales performance was terrible, leaving him so anxious that his hair nearly turned white. Don't worry, Feng, my younger brother, Hu Renyu said confidently. I'll make sure he sells you his best unit at the lowest price. If he refuses, I'll beat him senseless. Judging from his tone, they must have had a close relationship. After waiting for over half an hour, Hu Renyu's friend still hadn't shown up. He grew impatient and muttered, what's taking him so long? Even if he's late, there should be limits. As he spoke, he pulled out his phone and dialed his friend's number. The phone rang for a long time, but went unanswered. A sense of unease crept over Hu Renyu, and he quickly dialed another number. A few seconds later, his expression changed drastically. My friend is in trouble. Chapter 50, Seeking Death. Seeing Hu Yuren's tense and anxious expression, Feng Shuo couldn't help but frown and asked, what's wrong? What happened? This kid invested his entire fortune into a real estate project, but because of the poor location, the units just won't sell. His bank loan is about to mature, and he doesn't have a single cent left. He's lost all hope and planning to end it all. Most people outside the industry assume that real estate is a gold mine, but few understand that with high returns come equally high risks. At this point, the real estate sector hasn't truly taken off yet. Out of 10 people investing in property, 8 end up losing everything. Hu Yuren's friend was likely no exception. Feng, my brother, I have to go check on him right away. We've been close for years. I can't bear to see him suffer like this. Well then, we'll catch up another time. As soon as Hu Yuren finished speaking, he quickly stood up and rushed toward the door. Feng Shuo hurriedly called after him. Old Hu, want me to come with you? If he's your friend, let me come too. Maybe I can take a look at the situation and offer some advice. Hu Yuren paused and thought. Yes, an extra pair of eyes and mind could help. Besides, he had developed a kind of blind admiration for Feng Shuo lately. Perhaps he really could come up with something. And so, the two of them sped off toward the scene. They arrived at a housing development located in the suburbs, an entirely new residential complex, still fresh from construction, where hardly anyone came or went. On the way over, Hu Yuren explained the full situation. The development sat at the border between urban and suburban areas, where land prices were low, which is why his friend had partnered with others to build there. They'd completed the buildings, but due to its great distance from the city center and the lack of public transport, access was extremely inconvenient. When making the investment, his friend only focused on cost efficiency and overlooked transportation concerns. Now that the project was finished, the traffic problem had become a fatal flaw. Most potential buyers, even those who could afford it, found the location too remote and inconvenient and refused to purchase. They'd slashed prices again and again, yet still no one bought. With their massive bank loans about to expire, Hu Yuren's friend saw no way out and decided that jumping off a building would be better than dragging his family down with debt. Driven by utter despair, he chose to end his life right here, atop this newly built property complex. When Feng Shuo and Hu Yuren arrived, a large crowd had already gathered on the rooftop of one of the high-rises. Among them were business partners who had heard the news, police officers, volunteers, and several professional crisis negotiators. Hu Yuren pushed through the crowd until he reached the front. There, on the edge of the roof, sat his friend, legs dangling into open air, ready to jump at any moment. This was the 18th floor. One fall would mean certain death. Feng Shuo looked closely. The man appeared to be around the same age as Hu Yuren, of average height, with a crew cut and unremarkable features, one who'd easily blend into any crowd unnoticed. A negotiation expert was still pleading earnestly. Mr. Chindayo, there's no hurdle in life that cannot be overcome. No matter how tough things are, you must face them. Push through, and you might find a bright future waiting ahead. Chindayo looked haggard, dark circles under his eyes. He didn't even glance at the negotiator as he coldly sneered. Bright future? I don't see one. All I know is that if I can't repay the bank loan, everything I own will be gone. My wife is still young. I don't want her to suffer with me. My baby is only a month old. I can't let him grow up burdened by endless debt. If I die, it'll all vanish. After saying this, Chen's wife burst into heart-wrenching sobs beside him. Dayo, don't do anything rash. If you leave us, our child will grow up without a father. Can you really abandon us, a widow and an orphan? Chen gave his wife a sorrowful look. It's better for him to have no father than a bankrupt one. After I'm gone, find someone good and remarry. Promise me, you must treat yourself well. At that moment, Hu Yuren shouted loudly. Chindayo, you can't die. Didn't you once say you wanted to become the richest man in the world? You haven't fulfilled that dream yet. How can you give up so easily? Chen turned back and met Hu Yuren's gaze. For the first time, a trace of warmth flickered in his eyes. Old Hu, you came to see me off. That's enough to make me content. We were true friends. Please take care of my wife and child. Judging by his words, Chen had made up his mind. Anyone willing to abandon his wife and newborn child and give up his own life must have fallen into unimaginable despair. Feng Shuo glanced around the empty compound when suddenly a memory surfaced. In his previous life, he'd once seen a news report about this very place. After this housing project was completed, the developer committed suicide due to unsold units. Ironically, just days after the developer jumped, the Jiangzhou municipal government unexpectedly announced that the city subway line would be extended here. And the terminal station of the extension line was precisely this housing complex. The moment the news broke, every single unit in the development was snapped up overnight. With the arrival of the subway, transportation was no longer an issue. Anyone who waited until the subway opened to buy would likely face skyrocketing prices. Although that news report hadn't revealed the name of the developer who took his life, Feng Shuo was now absolutely certain. It had to be Chindayo. Chindayo had already lost all will to live. After giving Hu Yuren his final words, his emotions grew increasingly unstable. He had run out of patience and steeled himself to end it all. He shifted forward a few centimeters. Now most of his body hung over the edge of the rooftop. One misstep, and he would plummet to his death. A collective gasp rose from the crowd below. Some onlookers, too frightened to watch, shut their eyes tightly. At that very moment, Feng Shuo suddenly stepped forward and shouted, Mr. Chun, the reason your units aren't selling is due to poor transportation. But in just a short while, that problem will be solved. Once transportation is fixed, you won't have any trouble selling your units. Prices will surge straight upward. Not only can you repay your bank loans, you'll amass enormous wealth. This statement froze Chindayo. He turned slowly, dazed, and stared at Feng Shuo. What did you say? The traffic issue will be resolved soon. Chen asked, unable to believe his ears. Yes, trust me. Within a week at most, the news will break. The city government has decided to extend the subway line, and the new terminal station will be right here, at your project. Just think, once the subway opens, how could your homes possibly fail to sell? For the first time since arriving on the rooftop, a flicker of light returned to Chindayo's hollow eyes. His gaze locked onto Feng Shuo, unwavering. How? How do you know the subway will reach here? How could he know? Because Feng Shuo had lived through it once before. He knew exactly how it would unfold. But he couldn't reveal that truth. No one would believe him. So he quickly made up an excuse. I have a relative who works in the city government. He let me know. It's not really a secret, just not yet publicly announced. Chapter 51. Wait 5 more days. Of course, someone who is determined to die doesn't easily change their mind. Although Feng Shua's words slightly softened Chen Daio's resolve, they still didn't alter his decision. When a person no longer wants to live, how desperate must they feel? How could mere words make them give up in an instant? Chen Daio said, "Stop trying to fool me. I've been in the real estate business. I have connections. Why have I never heard about this subway extension plan before? Don't say any more. Just let me go. Once I jump, everything ends." Feng Shua replied calmly, "If you really want to die, I won't stop you. But I'll give you one piece of advice. Since you don't care about living anyway, why not wait a couple more days?" After a brief pause, he continued firmly, "Just 5 days. All I ask is that you wait 5 days. If the city government hasn't announced the subway extension by then, I'll jump with you." His words stunned everyone present. He's about to jump, and you're volunteering to join him? Hu Yurin quickly tugged at Feng Shua's sleeve, urging him not to make such reckless promises. Chen Daio was also taken aback. You'll jump with me?" Feng Shua spread his hands helplessly. "To be honest, I'm also in the real estate business. Like you, I've invested my entire fortune into a single property project. What's even worse is that I partnered with my brother in arms, only for him to run off with my wife, and all our money. Now I've lost my wife and am buried under massive debt. Not a single apartment I own has sold. I owe the bank, and I owe the construction company too. To fund this project, I raised every penny I could from my entire hometown village. You know how it is. If I go bankrupt, the bank and the construction company won't let me off easily. Thousands of villagers back home will come after me with knives. So if the subway isn't extended, I'm dead either way." His heartbreaking story brought a look of sympathy to Chen Daio's face. He thought he had it bad, but clearly someone else was suffering even more than he was. By comparison, his own misfortunes suddenly didn't seem so terrible. True, he faced crushing debt, but at least his wife still loved him, and he had a son. His business might have failed, but his life wasn't over yet. "Brother, you gotta stay strong." Chen Daio found himself comforting Feng Shua instead. Feng Shua gave a faint smile. "It's alright. Once the news about the subway extension breaks, everything will work out. Come on over and just wait 5 days with me. And even if you don't jump then, I sure as hell will." Chen Daio's expression and gaze softened, no longer as resolute as before. Everyone held their breath, watching him tensely. After a long, painful internal struggle, Chen Daio finally changed his mind. He pulled his feet back from the edge and shifted his weight fully back onto the rooftop. He nodded slowly. "Brother, you're right. Maybe a miracle really will happen. Since I was ready to die anyway, 5 days earlier or later doesn't matter. Let's make a deal. If there's no announcement in 5 days, we jump together." Feng Shua swung his arm decisively. "Deal." With that, he nodded at Hu Yurin, who immediately understood and rushed forward, wrapping his arms around Chen Daio and dragging him back from the ledge. The police officers, volunteers, and others swarmed in, quickly pulling Chen Daio safely toward the center of the rooftop. A forensic doctor quickly approached and performed a basic check. Once it was confirmed that Chen was unharmed, everyone breathed a sigh of relief. Chen Daio's wife rushed forward and threw herself into his arms, sobbing uncontrollably. Feng Shua allowed himself a small smile, then quietly slipped away amidst the commotion. He wasn't trying to be a nameless hero. It was simply that he didn't want to be surrounded by a crowd asking endless questions. That would drive him crazy, so he chose to leave unnoticed. Chen Daio had temporarily abandoned his suicidal thoughts, though he hadn't completely ruled it out yet. Once the city government made the announcement 5 days later, you'd probably have to beg him to jump. He wouldn't do it even if asked. Feng Shua's memory was correct. Exactly 5 days later, the municipal government officially announced that the subway line would be extended, the final stop of the new segment being precisely at Chen Daio's property. As soon as the news broke, sharp-eyed investors quickly sensed an opportunity and began inquiring about apartment prices. That very day, Chen Daio managed to sell over a dozen units. This dramatic turnaround reignited hope within Chen Daio. He couldn't help feeling relieved that he hadn't jumped. Otherwise, he truly would have died in vain. Feng Shua had been absolutely right. He waited 5 days, and a miracle appeared. Chen Daio's gratitude toward Feng Shua grew immensely, especially when he later learned that Feng Shua wasn't actually a real estate developer, that everything he'd said that day was fabricated to save him. From that moment on, Chen Daio regarded Feng Shua as his savior. He swore that once all the units were sold, he would find a way to properly repay Feng Shua. Hu Yurin now looked at Feng Shua not only with deep admiration, but also overwhelming gratitude. After all, Feng Shua had saved his best friend's life. Feng Shua was truly a benefactor in his fate, someone who not only helped him earn money but could even save lives when it mattered most. To express his heartfelt thanks, Hu Yurin invited Qian Lai and Feng Shua out for a meal at a nice restaurant in Jiangzhou. "Brother Feng, Chen Daio is riding high these days. His phone won't stop ringing. Every morning when he opens his eyes, people are already calling to buy apartments from him. He's almost driven crazy by how busy he's gotten." Hu Yurin grinned. Feng Shua simply smiled faintly in response, saying nothing. This was just the beginning. The land Chen Daio used to build his properties only took up 1/3 of its total area. Given the current feverish sales pace, he would definitely develop the remaining 2/3 as well. And that's when the real fortune would be made. Feng Shua had already made up his mind. By then, he'd take the opportunity to acquire several units directly from Chen Daio. Once property prices hit their peak, he would sell them all off and complete the first stage of his plan. But before that, he needed to raise enough capital. According to his calculations, within 2 or 3 months, Chen Daio would have nearly sold out his current inventory. Once he had sufficient funds, he'd continue building on the remaining land. It would probably take at least 1 to 2 years from construction start until the new units went on sale. By then, housing prices would already be on a steady rise. 1 or 2 years from now, Jiangzhou's average property price should be between 8,000 and 15,000 yuan per square meter. Thanks to the new subway line, prices in Chundao's development wouldn't fall short. Still, since the location sat right at the edge between urban and suburban areas, lacking true prime positioning, it couldn't realistically exceed 10,000 yuan per square meter. Calculating at 11,000 yuan per square meter, with standard units sized at 100 square meters, each apartment would be worth about 1 million yuan. To achieve the first phase of his goal, there was no way around it. He needed at least 10 apartments. That meant he needed no less than 10 million yuan in capital. Right now, he had nearly 3 million yuan. After deducting the portion set aside for buying a house and car, he'd still have around 1.5 million yuan left. Chapter 52. A way to make money. Turning over 1 million into more than 10 million. That was a tenfold difference. Though the goal seemed far away, Fang Shuo had full confidence in making over 10 million within a short period of time. He had turned 400,000 into 2.8 million in just 2 or 3 days. So transforming more than 1 million into over 10 million certainly wasn't impossible. And besides, he still had plenty of time. Motivation often comes from having a goal. Many people lose their drive simply because they have no clear target. Now that Fang Shuo had his goal, all that remained was figuring out how to achieve it. Turning over 1 million into 10 million might sound easy, but doing it was not so simple. Initially, Fang Shuo turned 100 yuan into 10,000 yuan, an increase of 100 times, which wasn't particularly difficult. Then using 3,000 yuan, he made 10,000 yuan, a 50-fold return, something that also didn't pose much of a challenge. Then he used more than 10,000 yuan to open a bullfrog hotpot restaurant, eventually earning 400,000 yuan, a 40-fold return, but this required an entire month. Not long ago, he turned 400,000 yuan into 2.8 million yuan in less than a week. However, compared to previous instances, this only represented a 7-fold increase. Clearly, the smaller the principal amount, the faster it could grow. But once capital reached a certain level, multiplying it became increasingly difficult. Making 800 yuan profit from 100 yuan means an 800% growth rate. It sounds incredible, yet many ordinary people can do it. But making 10 million profit from 100 million is merely a 10% growth rate. And yet most people are unable to achieve it. This illustrates one truth. The difficulty of increasing 1 yuan by 100 times is incomparable to the difficulty of increasing 1 million by 100 times. It's like comparing heaven and earth. Of course, for average people, such goals might seem overwhelmingly difficult. But Fang Shuo, having lived 2 lifetimes, possessed foresight and ability far beyond those of ordinary men. Moreover, he already had a plan in mind and was ready to put it into action. Today presented the perfect opportunity, so Fang Shuo brought it up. Old who? Old Qian, I've got an idea. Would you like to hear it? Whenever Fang Shuo proposed an idea, it usually meant big money ahead. Take the recent equipment sale. They had never imagined earning so much money in one go. Combined, neither Hu Yuren nor Qian Lai had earned that much in their entire lives. So when they heard Fang Shuo had an idea, both immediately put down their chopsticks and stared intently at him. Brother Fang, just speak your mind. Don't hold back. Fang Shuo smiled and said, right now, our country is undergoing reform everywhere. State-owned enterprises are being transformed into shareholding systems, and the market economy is steadily developing. In the past, Jiangzhou Food Processing Factory was considered an iron rice bowl job. Even such enterprises are now undergoing reform. So which company can possibly escape this wave? Therefore, the restructuring of Jiangzhou agricultural market is inevitable. Hu Yuren and Qian Lai looked stunned, exchanging glances, failing to understand why Fang Shuo was bringing this up. Fang Shuo continued, Old Hu, you've been a distributor for a long time. You must know every corner of the agricultural market very well. My idea is simple. After the agricultural market gets restructured, we should invest all our funds into it. Hu Yuren gulped hard. All of it into the agricultural market? Can we really make money there? Fang Shuo nodded firmly. Yes. You need to understand, agricultural products are basic necessities for common people. And the Jiangzhou agricultural market is not only the largest, but also the only wholesale market for agricultural goods in Jiangzhou City. When it comes to business, the most profitable kind is always monopoly business. When you're the only game in town, all the profits flow straight to you. How could that not be lucrative? Hu Yuren nodded and said, that's true. Without competition, we could set any price we want, and people would still have no choice but to pay. Fang Shuo laughed heartily. You're wrong there. While monopolies can raise prices, if a product's price goes too far above its actual value, the market will ultimately reject it. Take the simplest example. If I asked you to spend 10,000 yuan on a single bowl of noodles, would you buy it? Besides, prices for staple goods like grain are controlled by the state. You can't arbitrarily hike prices without consequences. Hu Yuren chuckled awkwardly. I was just joking, really, just making a casual remark. Fang Shuo didn't take offense at Hu Yuren's words. He continued, the reason I'm targeting the agricultural market is because Old Hu has connections and channels here. In business, we prefer familiar grounds over uncharted territories. For long-term development, we must stick to what we know best. Both Hu Yuren and Qian Lai nodded in deep agreement. As experienced businessmen, they clearly understood this principle. Getting involved in industries you don't understand is the biggest pitfall in commerce. One either ends up completely scammed or loses everything. The reform of the agricultural market is as good as certain. It's bound to happen. What we need to do now is act first and buy shares in the agricultural market at the lowest possible price. Feng Shuo said with unwavering determination. Drawing on his memories from his previous life, he clearly understood the future direction and development of the market, and he had long planned out his next steps. One must invest early. Once the agricultural market completes its restructuring and stabilizes, the capital required to enter would likely multiply. They agreed that Hu Yurin would first investigate the details of the agricultural market's reform, then use his connections to secure shares early and become a shareholder. Becoming a shareholder was just the first step. There would be second and third steps to follow, though those could wait for another day. After dinner, everyone went their separate ways. Hu Yurin couldn't wait and immediately set off to gather information. Due to the incident involving Chun Dayo, Feng Shuo had encountered a minor setback, delaying his plans to buy a house and a car. But now that the football had settled, these matters couldn't be delayed any longer. Once progress began on the agricultural market venture, he would surely be swamped with work and have no time left for such trivialities. Lin Feng had said she'd take the child with her for a week. Counting the days, today should have been the final day. So Feng Shuo returned home early, waiting for Lin Feng to bring Guogua back. It wasn't until after 8 o'clock in the evening that Lin Feng finally brought Guogua home. Children usually went to bed around this time, so Guogua appeared exhausted, her eyes nearly shutting on their own. Seeing this, Feng Shuo quickly carried his daughter to her room and put her to bed. After stepping out, he confronted Lin Feng directly. Why did you bring Guogua back so late? Don't you know she has school tomorrow? Lin Feng replied indifferently. She was having too much fun, so I lost track of time. Besides, she didn't miss her sleep. There's no need for you to make such a big issue out of it. Also, I came here specially to tell you. Come home early tomorrow. I have something I want to discuss with you. With that, Lin Feng turned around and left. The next morning, as Feng Shuo prepared to send Guogua to school, he noticed something was off about his daughter. Chapter 53. Putting his heart at ease. It had only been a week since Guogua left Feng Shuo's side, yet several pus-filled bumps had already appeared on her previously clear face. Her complexion looked poor, and her skin seemed worse than before. Feng Shuo couldn't help but frown. Guogua, what have you been eating every day while staying with Mom this past week? Are you sleeping well? Why did these sores appear on your face? Hearing this, Guogua immediately pulled a long face and said, Dad, I never want to stay with Mom again. Every day she slathers so much powder and lipstick on my face. It makes me feel terrible. The teacher even criticized me, saying kids shouldn't wear makeup. My classmates laughed at me, calling me a monster. I told Mom, but she wouldn't listen. She said others were just jealous of me. Also, Mom and that uncle take me out every day to eat hot pot and steak. I hate those foods. Hot pot is way too spicy, I don't like it. And the steak has blood dripping from it. Putting it in my mouth makes me want to throw up. But Mom doesn't care at all. She keeps forcing food into my mouth, saying it's high-end food, very expensive, and it'd be wasteful not to eat it. That annoying uncle even laughs at me, calling me and you both country bumpkins. Feng Shuo frowned deeply as he listened. Guogua was only 6 years old. Makeup, hot pot, steak. These things weren't suitable for a child at all. Was Lin Feng even Guogua's real mother? It felt like she was torturing the kid. And it didn't end there. Guogua continued. Also, Mom never plays with me. She always leaves me alone. She took me out just once, with that uncle, to watch a movie. But that movie was meant for adults. The uncles and aunts in it kept hugging and kissing each other. I didn't want to watch that. I wanted cartoons. Feng Shuo could barely bear to listen. Lin Feng clearly had no idea how to care for a child. How could she let a kid watch adult movies? Many scenes in such films could negatively influence a young mind. Guogua, he said firmly. I'll speak to your teacher later. From now on, no one except Dad can pick you up. If Mom comes early to get you again, don't go with her. Tell the teacher to call me immediately, understand? Guogua nodded. Okay. After a moment, she asked, Dad, Mom isn't actually on a business trip, is she? Are you and Mom getting divorced? Feng Shuo froze. Why you don't go imagining things? He hadn't yet decided how to break the news to Guogua, so he denied it for now. But Guogua shook her head. In our class, several kids' parents got divorced. The situations they described are just like ours. Parents arguing often, Mom leaving with a suitcase saying she's on a business trip. And also, this whole week, Mom kept asking me who I'd want to live with if you two ever split up. Dad, are you and Mom really getting divorced? Feng Shuo hesitated for a long time, then finally decided it was best to tell the truth. He and Lin Feng had long grown apart emotionally. There was no love left between them. Divorce was inevitable. The only thing holding him back was Guogua. How would his daughter react if she knew her parents were divorcing? If she were still very young and clueless, it might be easier. But Guogua was already in school. She understood more than most children her age. In fact, she was unusually mature for a 6-year-old, so there was no point trying to hide the truth. Whether sooner or later, she'd find out anyway. Rather than keep deceiving her, it was better to come clean. Still, even if he decided to tell her, he couldn't just blurt it out directly. So Feng Shuo carefully tested the waters. Guogua, what if? I mean, just hypothetically, your mom and I get divorced, and you can only live with one of us. Would that make you sad? To his surprise, Guogua answered quickly and clearly. As long as I'm with Dad, Guogua won't be sad. Hearing this, Feng Shuo felt the heavy weight on his heart instantly lift. He had always worried that his divorce from Lin Feng would negatively affect Guogua, but now it seemed he'd overthought it. Guogua must have sensed the situation already and had mentally prepared herself. Besides, from infancy to now, Guogua had always been closest to him. For her, as long as she could stay with Dad, nothing else mattered. Feng Shuo smiled warmly. Good girl, you've got a grateful heart. Now finish your breakfast quickly. After school today, Dad will pick you up. We're going somewhere fun. Excited at the idea of going somewhere special with her father, Guogwa cheered happily. She wolfed down the rest of her breakfast, cheerfully slung her school bag over her shoulder, and headed off to school. After handling the morning chores at home, Feng Shuo called Chen Dayo directly. Chen Gu, it's Feng Shuo. Here's the thing. I'm thinking of buying an apartment downtown. You work in real estate. Got any good recommendations? Chen Dayo had been swamped lately. Calls from ordinary acquaintances usually went unanswered. But Feng Shuo was his lifesaver, the man who saved his life, so he absolutely couldn't ignore this call. He chuckled and said, Brother Feng, you've come to the right person. I've got a close buddy named Xiao Xuejin. He's in real estate too. He's the one who got me started in this business. He's not just any ordinary developer. He's well connected and has plenty of resources. He's developing a property downtown. If you want a place in the city center, going through him is definitely the way to go. Hold on a sec. I'll send you his number and give him a heads up. Then the two of you can just set up a time to view the units yourselves. As for price, don't hold back. Drive a hard bargain. Since you're my referral, he won't jack up the price. Feng Shuo thanked him and hung up. A moment later, Chen Dayo sent Xiao Xuejin's phone number. Right after receiving it, his phone rang. It was Xiao Xuejin calling first. Is this Mr. Feng Shuo? Old Chen told me. You're looking to buy a place? Although my project has been on sale for quite some time and most units are already sold, don't worry. I still have a few top floor plans with the best layouts and orientations. Feng Shuo smiled faintly. He was already aware of such tricks, so he replied calmly. I'd like to come by today. If I find something I like, I'll pay right away. Is that okay with you? No problem at all. Absolutely no problem. Xiao Xuejin naturally wouldn't turn down a customer. They quickly agreed on a time and ended the call. By late afternoon, when school let out, Feng Shuo arrived directly at the school gate, waiting for his daughter. Soon enough, he saw Guogwa walking out from the teaching building with the other kids, lined up in an orderly queue. Since Guogwa was relatively tall, she stood at the very end of the line. Next to her was a somewhat chubby little boy. He was the only overweight kid in her class, so it must be the same annoying boy Guogwa had mentioned earlier. All the children were quietly lining up, preparing to leave school. Just then, Feng Shuo noticed the little fat boy deliberately stick out his leg and trip Guogwa. Guogwa staggered, nearly falling. She turned to him angrily. What did you do that for? The boy sneered. Nothing. Just tripping you for fun. Chapter 54, Coincidence or Not. Guogwa shouted angrily. I didn't do anything to you. Why did you trip me? The little fat boy sneered. Because I feel like it. What are you going to do about it? Guogwa was furious, but she didn't explode on the spot. Instead, she chose to report it to the teacher and let the teacher handle it. The teacher came over and lightly scolded the fat boy with a few perfunctory words. Judging from the boy's indifferent expression, he clearly wasn't new to such scolding. His skin had long since thickened. Seeing that the boy showed no sign of accepting the criticism, the teacher could only feel helpless. Children attending private elementary schools generally came from well-off families. These kids couldn't be physically punished or verbally abused. All one could do was offer criticism and moral guidance. But this kind of discipline was practically useless, and teachers had no better methods at hand. As long as no major incidents occurred, most teachers would just turn a blind eye. Feng Shuo had watched the entire scene unfold without uttering a single word. This was something Guogwa needed to learn to face on her own. Parents could protect her for a time, but not for life. For his daughter to truly grow, she had to learn to stand strong by herself. Her handling of the situation today struck Feng Shuo as excellent. After all, in a school setting, if she had fought back physically against the fat boy, then even if she were in the right, she'd end up being seen as the wrongdoer. Reporting it to the teacher and letting authority intervene, that was the wisest choice. What pleased Feng Shuo most was that although Guogwa was clearly very angry, she managed to keep her emotions firmly under control. At her age, such self-restraint was rare indeed. Truly, Tiger Father has no weak cub. This was all in the genes. Thanks to the teacher's intervention, the little fat boy didn't dare bully Guogwa again. Until they left the school gate, he made no further moves. After stepping outside the school gate, just as Guogwa was about to board the school bus, she heard Feng Shuo call out, Guogwa, Daddy. She cried joyfully and dashed over. Feng Shuo lifted her into his arms. How was your day? Did you have a good one? In truth, he had already witnessed everything, but still asked anyway. He wanted to see how Guogwa would respond. Guogwa didn't tell him about the incident with the fat boy. Instead, she nodded and said cheerfully, It was great today. I can now keep up perfectly with my classmates. The teacher even praised me for being smart. Feng Shuo smiled. The reason Guogwa hadn't mentioned the fat boy was because she didn't want him to worry. Also, she must have believed she could handle it herself, which was why she kept quiet. Due to family circumstances, Guogwa was a mature child. Her mind was sharper than many adults. Dad, why did you come pick me up from school today? Guogwa asked. Today, I'm taking you somewhere special, and then we'll go out for dinner. Feng Shuo replied. Guogwa clapped her hands happily. Yay, let's go quickly. Just as they were talking, a black Mercedes pulled up at the school gate. The little fat boy deliberately glanced over at Guogwa before swaggering into the back seat. Guogwa wrinkled her nose at him, showing her defiance. He's the one you said is so annoying, right? Feng Shuo asked. Yeah, that's him. His dad runs some company. He acts so arrogant at school, bullies other students, and calls us all commoners. He especially looks down on me. When I first enrolled, he asked me how big our house was and whether we had a car. I told him honestly. And ever since, he's been picking on me, calling me a poor trash who doesn't belong in this kind of school. Feng Shuo gave a faint smile. You'll meet people like this wherever you go. Just ignore him. That's all. Guogwa nodded. Right. I never pay attention to him. If he ever tries to touch me, I'll report him to the teacher. You're doing exactly the right thing, Feng Shuo praised. As they talked, they walked to the roadside and flagged down a taxi. They got off near a residential complex in the city center and walked into the sales office. Most units in this development had already been sold, leaving only a few less desirable ones still listed. Salesgirls clustered in small groups, chatting leisurely among themselves. When they saw someone enter, none of them rushed forward. Instead, they glanced at Feng Shuo indifferently. Noticing that the man looked rather ordinary and was accompanied by a young girl, every salesgirl's eyes revealed a flicker of impatience. Not a single one stepped forward to greet them. Feng Shuo didn't mind much. He had already contacted the property developer beforehand. He was only here today to make a payment and complete some paperwork. No need for any sales pitch. He stepped forward and asked, "Excuse me, is your manager Xiao here?" He had expected that mentioning Xiao Xuejin's name would at least earn some attention. To his surprise, however, the girls remained aloof and uninterested. One of them casually replied, "Manager Xiao isn't here. He hardly ever comes around." In truth, this wasn't the first time people had come here claiming to know Manager Xiao. Almost every day someone showed up under his name, all looking for discounts or special favors. But who was Xiao Xuejin? There was no way he'd associate with just anyone off the street. That's why the salesgirls generally ignored such visitors. Anyone even slightly familiar with the property knew that Xiao Xuejin was the developer behind this project. His name frequently appeared on promotional flyers, so knowing it was nothing extraordinary. Feng Shuo wasn't aware of these details. Hearing that Xiao Xuejin wasn't around, he felt somewhat puzzled. Weren't they supposed to meet? Why hadn't he shown up? Just as he was about to take out his phone and call, the entrance to the sales center opened, and a man and woman walked in. Feng Shuo instinctively looked over, and when he recognized them, he froze. Whether it was bad luck or mere coincidence, the couple were none other than Feng Shuo's old nemesis, Ning Yuxiang, and his wife, Qi Meili. Though her name meant beautiful, Qi Meili was anything but. She was short, overweight, and plain-looking. Her lips were smeared with bright red lipstick, looking like a monkey's backside, and her face was caked with thick foundation that flaked off with every step she took. Despite her appearance, Qi Meili came from a powerful family. She was a genuine heiress, and her father happened to be the biggest client at Ning Yuxiang's company. To secure his career and status, Ning Yuxiang pursued her aggressively and succeeded in winning her hand. But after marriage, Ning Yuxiang found himself utterly unhappy. Though he'd married her for ambition, the woman was not only unattractive but also temperamental, constantly bossing him around and treating him like a servant. What he found most unbearable was that after years of marriage, Qi Meili still hadn't gotten pregnant. A hospital check revealed she suffered from congenital premature ovarian failure, meaning she could never bear children. Despite all these frustrations, Ning Yuxiang knew his social standing paled next to his wife's family, so he had no choice but to endure it silently. Yet anger needed an outlet, so he vented it elsewhere. Ning Yuxiang wore a full set of designer suits and an expensive wristwatch. Qi Meili, despite her ugliness, was adorned with gold and jewels, clearly bearing the look of wealth and privilege. Chapter 55, Beyond Tolerance. When they walked in, the real estate salesgirls rushed forward one after another to greet them. Ning Yuxiang said, "We're here to buy a house. Do you still have any units available?" Yes. Please come this way and take a look at our model layout. Let me give you a brief introduction." An experienced salesgirl warmly led Ning Yuxiang and Qi Meili over to the neighborhood model to patiently explain and present the property options. As soon as Ning Yuxiang and Qi Meili entered, they immediately spotted Feng Shuo and his daughter Guogua. Ning Yuxiang froze for a second, then sneered mockingly. "Feng Shuo? Never expected to run into you here. What are you doing here, applying for a job? Too bad though, they only hire women, not men." Because of Ning Yuxiang, Qi Meili also knew who Feng Shuo was. She looked at him with utter disdain, her face full of scorn. Feng Shuo had originally hoped to avoid encountering them, fearing he might lose control of his emotions. But since they'd already seen each other, there was no point in dodging it now. So Feng Shuo calmly replied, "I'm here to buy a house." "What? You're here to buy a house? With what money? You've got no job and no cash. What makes you think you can afford a house? Do you even know how much these apartments go for? Over 10,000 per square meter. Each unit costs at least $1 million. You want to buy a house? With what? Forget $1 million. You'd be lucky if you could scrape together 100 yuan total on your entire body." Qi Meili added coldly, "Can't you see he brought his kid? Probably planning to sell the child first, then use the money to buy the house." Ning Yuxiang burst into laughter. Who'd want that brat anyway? Unless they're buying her as a child bride. And even if someone were desperate enough to take her, 50,000 at most. That's still nowhere near enough for a down payment. Qi Meili sneered. Enough for a down payment at least. Then take out a mortgage loan afterward. That way, he could still manage it. Mortgage loan? Honey, you're giving him way too much credit. Even if this kind of person went down on his knees begging at the bank, they wouldn't lend him a single cent. Ning Yuxiang said contemptuously. Feng Shuo remained silent. He quietly took off his jacket and handed it to Guogua. He didn't want trouble, but that didn't mean he feared it. Avoiding Ning Yuxiang wasn't out of fear, it was merely self-restraint. But patience has its limits, and Ning Yuxiang had just crossed his Dishan. There was nothing left to endure. Thud! A muffled punch landed squarely on Ning Yuxiang's face. Ning Yuxiang screamed, clutching his face as he staggered backward several steps. That punch had been brutal. Not only had it swollen his face, but a large bruise quickly began to form. Having lived 2 lifetimes, Feng Shuo had actually wanted to beat this bastard senseless for a long time. Now, finally doing what he'd always wished, he felt an immense sense of satisfaction. Ning Yuxiang was nothing more than a paper tiger. scheming, or mouthing off. That was where he excelled. But when it came to actual physical confrontation, he was helpless. After being punched, he flew into a rage, roaring as he charged forward, but was instantly met with a kick straight to the gut from Feng Shuo, doubling him over in pain. In his previous life, after becoming wealthy, Feng Shuo had taken up various forms of exercise to prevent himself from growing complacent and developing bad habits. One of those disciplines was mixed martial arts. And it turned out he had a natural talent. He'd even participated in amateur competitions organized by Jiangzhou City and won awards. One Ning Yuxiang? Even if there were several more like him, none would stand a chance against Feng Shuo. How dare you hit someone? Qi Meili shrieked, turning to the salesgirls nearby. He's violent. Violence. Aren't you going to do something? The salesgirls hadn't expected Feng Shuo to resort to violence so suddenly. They were shocked into immobility, frozen in place, until Qi Meili's scream snapped them back to reality. They immediately called security. Several tall, burly guards arrived swiftly and stepped between them. One guard placed a hand firmly on Feng Shuo's shoulder while the other rested his hand on the rubber baton at his waist, ready to intervene at any moment. Ning Yuxiang, now bloodied, was completely enraged. Wiping the blood from the corner of his mouth, he bellowed, Feng Shuo, you little bastard, how dare you lay a hand on me? Feng Shuo ignored him and instead turned to Guogua. She wasn't frightened at all. In fact, she gazed at him with pure admiration. Handing back his jacket, she said, Daddy, you're amazing. You're just like a superhero in the movies. Feng Shuo smiled and said, Guogua, remember, fighting is never good. But if someone crosses your Dishan or insults someone you care about deeply, don't hold back. Hit back hard. Guogua pondered for a moment, then nodded firmly. Yeah, I understand. Though it was a society governed by law, and everyone claimed to be civilized, Feng Shuo didn't mind using violence when necessary. It just depended on the time, place, situation, and the reason behind it. He looked down on bullying the weak. That was beneath him. But if someone insulted his daughter like today, he would never tolerate it. Even if given the chance to go back and relive this moment, he would still punch Ning Yuxiang without hesitation. Seeing her husband injured, Qi Meili was so angry she jumped up and down. She screamed inside the sales center, threatening to call the police and have Feng Shuo arrested and thrown in jail. The salesgirls naturally didn't want that. This was a place of business, after all, just a minor conflict, nothing worth bringing in the authorities over. They quickly tried to calm her down with soothing words, hoping to extinguish Qi Meili's fury. Qi Meili, however, was too enraged to think clearly. She snapped viciously. This penniless loser just assaulted my husband, and you expect me to let it go? There's no way it ends this easily. Let me tell you, I know your boss, Xiao Xuejin. Either you punish this punk right now, or I'll call Xiao Xuejin myself and make him come deal with this personally. Ordinarily, if someone claimed to know the boss, the salesgirls wouldn't believe them. But with Qi Meili, they dared not dismiss her. People like her clearly had money, the clothes they wore, the accessories they carried, all high-end brands. They practically had the words, wealthy people, written on their faces. Someone like this likely had connections. It was entirely possible she really did know Xiao Xuejin. They didn't want such a trivial matter to bother the boss. If he actually showed up because of this, he'd surely reprimand them later. If they couldn't even handle a small incident like this, what good were they? Hearing her threat, the salesgirls grew nervous. They quickly pleaded, Sis, please don't call our boss. It's not that big a deal, leave it to us. We'll handle it immediately, and we promise you'll be satisfied. After speaking, they turned fierce glares toward Feng Shuo. What kind of hooligan are you, causing trouble here? Do you even know who owns this place? If we don't teach you a lesson today, you'll probably come back to stir up more chaos. With that, one of the salesgirls subtly signaled to the security guard. The guard understood instantly, pulling out his rubber baton and swinging it straight toward Feng Shuo's head. Chapter 56, Blind as a Bat. Feng Shuo reacted quickly, dodging to the side. Just as he prepared to counterattack, a deep, stern voice rang out. Stop! What on earth are you doing? Everyone froze for a moment and turned toward the source of the voice. An unremarkable-looking middle-aged man approached briskly, exuding an overwhelming air of authority. The salesgirls immediately dropped their heads like mice caught in the presence of a cat, bowing slightly. Good afternoon, boss. This man was none other than Xiao Xuejin, the property developer himself. He strode forward, his sharp gaze sweeping over everyone present. Finally, his eyes settled on Feng Shuo's face. Chen Dao had described Feng Shuo's appearance in detail and even sent him a photo, so Xiao Xuejin recognized him instantly. You're Mr. Feng, right? Haha, I didn't expect you to arrive so early. Come, please have a seat, please. Xiao Xuejin instantly dropped his stern demeanor and broke into a broad smile. Then, without missing a beat, he glared furiously at the salesgirls. Are you all blind? The guest has been standing here this whole time, and not one of you thought to bring a chair? Move. Get a sofa chair over here, now. The salesgirls were completely stunned. They would never have imagined in their wildest dreams that Feng Shuo actually knew Xiao Xuejin. They'd assumed he was just bluffing earlier, but now they realized it was true. A wave of deep regret crashed over them instantly. Not just the salesgirls. Ning Yuxiang and Qi Meili were equally dumbfounded. There was no way they could have predicted that Feng Shuo knew Xiao Xuejin. Are you deaf or stupid? Didn't you hear what I said? Xiao Xuejin barked when the girls still hadn't moved. They flinched in unison, then scrambled off in all directions. A minute later, they dragged over a large, plush single-seater sofa and placed it directly in front of Feng Shuo. Sir, please sit down. Make yourself comfortable. Their attitude had done a complete 180-degree turn. Feng Shuo ignored them. People like these, fawning on power, chasing status and wealth, were destined to remain forever stuck at the bottom of society. Sure, right now they worked in real estate sales and earned good money. But once the housing market became saturated and began to shrink, their lives would quickly fall apart. In his previous life, Feng Shuo had known many people who worked in real estate. Under the influence of money, they lost themselves, developing extravagant habits, some even falling into gambling addiction. In the end, most either wasted their lives accomplishing nothing or descended into a life of crime. Either way, the outcome wasn't good. So Feng Shuo could already foresee the future of these salesgirls. If they didn't wake up and face reality, their fate was sealed. Mr. Xiao, honestly, I'm just here to look at houses. If I find one suitable and satisfying, I'll pay on the spot. My opinion isn't important. The key is my daughter. If she likes it, I'll buy it no matter the price. Xiao Xuejin nodded with a smile. No problem, of course. Mr. Fong, please wait a moment while I give a few instructions to my staff. With that, he glanced around and pointed at the most senior salesgirl. You come here. Take Mr. Fong to building 8 and show him every unit from 601 to 802. Whatever apartment he prefers, he can have it. The woman hesitated. Mr. Xiao, building 8 isn't open for sale. How dare you? Who decides what's for sale, you or me? Stop talking nonsense. Do you even want to keep working here? If not, pack up and leave. I won't hold you back. Seeing her boss furious, the woman shrank back, stammering. Yes, I spoke out of turn. I know. She even slapped herself twice across the face as she spoke. Xiao Xuejin then turned back to Feng Shuo with a warm smile. Mr. Fong, please go with her. She'll give you a thorough tour and detailed explanations. If none of these appeal to you, don't worry. I have other projects too. Whenever you're free, we can arrange a visit. Feng Shuo smiled. Thank you very much. He understood perfectly. Xiao Xuejin intended to sell him one of the best units reserved for special clients. These properties, with optimal layouts and orientations, were usually kept off the market. Only those with personal connections or exceptional influence could ever hope to purchase them. Feng Shuo fell into the first category. He'd been referred by Chun Dayo, so of course Xiao Xuejin wouldn't hold back. Still, even with Chun Dayo's referral, Xiao Xuejin didn't have to offer Feng Shuo his personally reserved units. Truth be told, Xiao Xuejin had been at the scene the day Chun Dayo jumped. He'd originally intended to talk him down, but seeing how determined Chun was to die, he chose not to intervene. After all, it wouldn't have helped, and might have only made things worse. But he never expected that Feng Shuo, with just a few words, had actually convinced Chun Dayo. And not only that, 5 days later, the city government really did announce the news about extending the subway line. Real estate developers all had their networks, and Xiao Xuejin, developing properties in the city center, naturally had solid connections. Yet even he had never heard a single word about the subway extension. This was top secret information within the city government. Unless one had special inside contacts, there was no way to know such confidential details. Xiao Xuejin had every reason to believe that Feng Shuo must have exceptionally powerful connections within the city government, perhaps even holding an important position himself. Besides, Feng Shuo's calm demeanor and eloquence at the time were simply beyond what an ordinary person could achieve. So Xiao Xuejin concluded, Feng Shuo was no ordinary man. Someone like this absolutely needed to be properly befriended. After all, real estate development was essentially about relationships. If you had background, connections, and influence, then getting approval to develop property anywhere was just a matter of saying the word. That was precisely why Xiao Xuejin was so enthusiastic, and even willing to sell Feng Shuo one of his personally reserved units. After speaking, Xiao Xuejin ordered the salesgirl to take Feng Shuo to view the apartments, while he personally escorted them to the entrance of the sales center. From beginning to end, Ning Yuxiang and Qi Meili watched everything unfold with utter disbelief. Ever since losing his job, Feng Shuo had been completely defeated, depressed, and listless, doing nothing but sleeping or drinking. Ning Yuxiang had long known this through various channels. At their last meeting, he had humiliated Feng Shuo severely and felt quite proud of himself. Who could have imagined that such a broken-down nobody would actually know someone like Xiao Xuejin? Earlier, Ning Yuxiang had deliberately caused trouble on Xiao Xuejin's turf. If Xiao chose to press the issue, Ning would surely suffer serious consequences. So as they approached, Ning Yuxiang and Qi Meili quickly lowered their heads, hoping not to be noticed. However, because they had just clashed with Feng Shuo, Guo particularly disliked them. She made a face at Ning Yuxiang and Qi Meili, sticking her tongue out at them. The salesgirls were all shrewd observers. Earlier, they had misjudged Ning Yuxiang and Qi Meili as VIPs, only to offend the boss's friend instead. They were already upset inside. How could they possibly let these two off easily? Chapter 57, Don't Know You. The senior saleswoman suddenly spoke up. Boss, these two said they're your friends. We thought so too earlier, which was why we offended Mr. Fong. Xiao Xuejin paused in surprise, carefully studying Ning Yuxiang and Qi Meili for a few moments, then showed an expression of confusion. He didn't recognize them at all. You say you're my friends? Then why don't I know who you are? Xiao Xuejin asked. Ning Yuxiang looked embarrassed and could only turn to his wife. Qi Meili forced a faint smile and said, Mr. Xiao, perhaps you're one of those important people who forget easily. I'm the daughter of Qi Fuguei. My father once had dinner with you. Her father, Qi Fuguei, did indeed attend a meal with Xiao Xuejin before, but it had been a gathering with many people present, and Qi Fuguei had merely exchanged greetings with Xiao Xuejin. Xiao Xuejin was someone of considerable status, holding a notable position in the real estate industry. Someone at Qi Fuguei's level would barely register, even if they'd exchanged greetings. Xiao Xuejin racked his brain, but still couldn't recall who Qi Fugui was. He shook his head. I don't remember. Too many people have dined with me. I can't possibly remember them all. Then his tone turned stern as he added, but you've caused a scene here and offended my friend. I will definitely settle this account with you. He waved at the security guards. Throw these two out immediately and add them to the blacklist. No property developed by our company should ever be sold to them again. When the boss spoke, the guards acted without hesitation. The female sales staff, already feeling indignant, quickly opened their computers and entered Ning Yuxiang and Qi Mei's information into the blacklist system. Ning Yuxiang and Qi Mei were shoved right out, humiliated and disheveled. Now blacklisted, they would never be allowed to purchase any future properties developed by Xiao Xuejin's company. Since many of Xiao Xuejin's developments were located in prime urban areas, this meant that Ning Yuxiang and Qi Mei would face severe limitations if they wanted to buy homes in the city center. Today, they had truly shot themselves in the foot. They'd intended to crush Feng Shuo completely, but instead ended up suffering the consequences themselves. Dejected, they left the sales center and got into their car. Sitting in the passenger seat, Qi Mei grew more and more furious as she thought about it. She glared sharply at Ning Yuxiang. Didn't you say Feng Shuo was finished? Didn't you say you'd crushed him beneath your heel? So what happened today? This is the most humiliating thing that's ever happened to me. How are we supposed to deal with this? I'm so angry I could explode. Ning Yuxiang was just as baffled. How could Feng Shuo possibly know someone like Xiao Xuejin? And not only know him, but seem close to him? What was going on? He sighed and said, forget it, honey. Maybe this kid just got lucky and somehow connected with Xiao Xuejin. Looks like I misjudged the situation. Calm down and let's think about something pleasant. Qi Mei shot him a scornful look. There's nothing pleasant about this right now. Ning Yuxiang quickly forced a smile and said, our company is about to finalize a cooperation deal with Longjia. Once their funding comes through, our company will expand significantly. The boss has promised us management staff will receive original shares. I roughly calculated, if I really get equity, I'll become a shareholder. My net worth will multiply from there. Yet Qi Mei sneered. Even if it grows tenfold, you're still just an employee. And you know full well who you owe your current success to. A muscle in Ning Yuxiang's face twitched, but he quickly replied with flattery. Of course it's all thanks to you, my dear wife. Without your support and your father's help, I'd still be just a lowly salesperson today. Qi Mei's expression softened slightly. Good. At least you understand that. Though Ning Yuxiang kept smiling on the surface, inside he was cursing Qi Mei and her entire family with the vilest words imaginable. He had already made up his mind. The moment he received his shares, he would divorce Qi Mei immediately. He'd had enough of this shrew. Once he became a shareholder, his status and position would change entirely. He wouldn't need to rely on Qi Mei or her family anymore. Once they lost their usefulness, he would kick them aside without mercy. As he drove away, a satisfied smile flickered across his face. Meanwhile, Feng Shuo followed the saleswoman to view several units in Building 8. After touring every floor plan, Guo finally picked Unit 802. Feng Shuo didn't ask questions. As long as his daughter liked it, he paid without hesitation. After all, it was only a little over $1 million. The money meant nothing to him. Back at the sales center, Xiao Xuejin asked with a wide smile, Mr. Feng, have you found something you like? Would you like me to take you to see a few other developments? Feng Shuo smiled and said, no need for that much trouble. My daughter likes Unit 802 in Building 8, so I'll take that one. Just calculate the price. I'll pay in full today. Hearing this, Xiao Xuejin immediately perked up. After all, although housing prices weren't high by today's standards, people who could afford to pay over $1 million in cash all at once were still rare. Just based on this fact alone, Xiao Xuejin became even more convinced that Feng Shuo was no ordinary man. He immediately called over a saleswoman to calculate the total cost. Since Feng Shuo was paying in full, he qualified for a 10% discount under company policy. A 10% cut on a house worth over $1 million meant saving more than $100,000. No small sum. Feng Shuo didn't refuse the discount. After all, it was an official policy, not a personal concession from Xiao Xuejin, so he wouldn't be in anyone's debt. At this time, there were no fully furnished apartments available. They weren't move-in ready. So if someone wanted to move in, they'd have to wait until renovations were completed. Fortunately, Feng Shuo didn't need to worry about the renovation process. With someone right here who could handle it, why bother going elsewhere? As a real estate developer, Xiao Xuejin certainly knew reliable renovation crews. Turning to him for help would definitely solve the problem efficiently. Not only could they get better pricing, but most importantly, the construction quality would be guaranteed. Sure enough, when Feng Shuo asked Xiao Xuejin to recommend a renovation team, he agreed instantly. Feng Shuo was generous. He handed Xiao Xuejin 20,000 yuan outright, instructing him to make sure the work was done well. In reality, the renovation wouldn't cost nearly that much, but Feng Shuo disliked being indebted to others. By giving extra money on purpose, he turned it into a sort of commission for Xiao Xuejin. Mr. Feng, the property title won't be ready just yet, Xiao Xuejin said. But you can let me know now, whose name should go on the deed. Feng Shuo thought for a moment. Put Guoguo's name. Xiao Xuejin chuckled. Your daughter is underage, so her name alone can't be on the deed. We can add your name first. Once she turns 18, we can remove yours later. Feng Shuo thought it made sense and agreed. The saleswoman carefully placed the apartment keys into a craft paper envelope and handed them to Feng Shuo. Chapter 58 Safety First. They were now feeling extremely uneasy. They had all seen how effortlessly Feng Shuo paid the money earlier, without the slightest hesitation or sign of reluctance. To him, Over $1 million seemed to mean nothing at all. They had met countless buyers here before, and the majority of them always showed some reluctance when making payments, as if they weren't handing over cash, but cutting off a piece of their own flesh. Yet Feng Shuo hadn't even blinked. He paid in full, cash, immediately, and then he casually tossed out another 200,000 yuan for interior decoration. Across the entire city of Jiangzhou, someone with that kind of boldness was rarely seen. Based on their experience, Feng Shuo was clearly a man who didn't care about money, and yet, they had treated him like that just moments ago. What short-sighted fools they had been. Now, they could only pray silently that Feng Shuo wouldn't hold it against them. Fortunately, Feng Shuo didn't seem interested in holding grudges. He simply collected the keys, receipts, and purchase documents, then left with Guogua. From the moment he entered until the deal was done, less than an hour had passed. And that was still because of the conflict with Ning Yuxiang and his wife, which had taken up considerable time. Without that incident, everything could have been finished in half an hour. This transaction was now the fastest since the property launch, and Feng Shuo had paid in full, too. The commission rate for full payments was vastly different from those made through mortgage loans. If they had received him properly, each of them would have earned a handsome bonus by now. Instead, blinded by arrogance and prejudice, they had let this golden opportunity slip right through their fingers. Now that the sale was complete, the bonus was undoubtedly no longer theirs. They couldn't even hope for a commission. Just hoping the boss wouldn't punish them would already be asking for a miracle. With the house bought, Feng Shuo checked the time and saw he still had some left. So he decided to take Guogua straight to buy a car. Might as well get everything done today, so he wouldn't have to worry about it later when things got busy. Besides, Feng Shuo was someone who acted immediately upon deciding, never one to procrastinate. As for which car to buy, he'd already made up his mind. The last time he went to Longjia to discuss selling a shop, he noticed an Audi 4S store there running a promotion. Anyone who purchased a vehicle at their store would receive a generous gift package. The package was rich in content, free maintenance, car insurance, interior upgrades, and either a navigation system or premium onboard audio system. Altogether, it added up to over 20,000 yuan, quite a practical deal. At this time, the auto sales industry was booming. High demand and limited supply kept car prices elevated. With healthy profits, 4S stores could afford to give away valuable extras. More importantly, domestic Chinese automakers hadn't risen yet. Most cars on the market were imported. Without competition, profit margins remained very high. Upon arriving at the 4S store, a young man in a suit stepped forward and said, "Sir, are you here to look at cars? Do you have a budget in mind? We're currently running a promotion. Purchase a vehicle and receive a grand gift package." Feng Shuo nodded. "Yes, I'm aware of that. I'm looking for something around 2 to 300,000. Any recommendations?" For this price range, I suggest two models, the A4L and the A6L. The first is more family-oriented, while the second is designed for business use. It depends on your needs. In truth, Feng Shuo didn't know much about cars, especially ones under $1 million. In his previous life, his personal vehicle had been a custom Rolls-Royce Phantom worth about 20 million yuan. So vehicles costing just several hundred thousand felt almost insignificant to him. After all, it was merely a mode of transportation, not something requiring excessive fuss. His only real requirement was safety. No matter how good the performance, safety came first. That was precisely why he chose Audi, primarily for its safety record. Among comparable vehicles, both Mercedes-Benz and BMW had publicized safety incidents, whereas Audi hardly ever faced such issues. This car would carry Guogua, so Feng Shuo naturally placed safety above all else. "Here's what I'll do," Feng Shuo said, nodding. "Just show me around first. I don't have high demands regarding performance. My only hope is that the car can guarantee safety during operation." The young salesman smiled gently. "Please rest assured, all our models have an excellent track record when it comes to safety." As he spoke, the young man gestured politely toward the showroom, preparing to lead Feng Shuo inside. Just then, a melodious voice came from behind. "Hello, I'm here for maintenance. I'm in a bit of a hurry. I hope it can be done within an hour. Is that possible?" Feng Shuo froze slightly upon hearing the voice. It sounded strangely familiar. He turned around together with Guogua, following the sound. "Oh, it's that Annie from last time," Guogua shouted excitedly. What a coincidence. The voice belonged to none other than Long Wanqing. Now that he thought about it, it wasn't really a coincidence. Long Wanqing's company was nearby, and she drove an Audi TT. Of course she'd come here for maintenance. When Long Wanqing saw Guogua, a warm smile immediately lit up her face. It was a genuine smile, as if a glacier that had stood frozen for 10,000 years had suddenly begun to thaw. Feng Shuo noticed she looked especially beautiful when she smiled. Long Wanqing crouched down and gently tapped Guogua's nose. "Little sister, you're calling me Andy again. Did you forget what I told you last time?" Guogua stuck out her tongue and corrected herself. "Sister." Long Wanqing stroked the little girl's head. "Good girl." She stood up and turned to Feng Shuo. "What are you two doing here?" "We're here to buy a car," Feng Shuo replied. "The last time I came to your company, I happened to see this store running a promotion, so I decided to come by." Long Wanqing chuckled teasingly. "Are you really worried about such a small discount?" Feng Shuo answered seriously. "I'm a businessman. I never miss any detail that can reduce costs. Every stream forms a river. Every grain of sand builds a tower. The Great Wall was built brick by brick, wasn't it?" Long Wanqing dropped her playful tone and nodded deeply in agreement. "You're absolutely right. It was inappropriate of me to make that joke." Feng Shuo smiled. "I only said that so you wouldn't think I'm stingy." She shrugged. "Don't worry, I don't think you're stingy at all. You're sharp. Unbelievably sharp." Feng Shuo responded calmly. "I take that as a compliment." They exchanged glances, then both broke into laughter. After the laughter faded, Long Wanqing took the initiative to invite him. Last time I invited you to dinner, and you refused. You won't turn me down again today, will you? Feng Shuo shook his head. No, I won't. But aren't you in a hurry? It's just my habit. I simply dislike waiting. Maintenance takes too long. This 1 hour is already my limit. Since it was getting late, the young salesman was the only staff member around. Feng Shuo graciously let him serve Long Wanqing first. While she waited, Feng Shuo took the chance to browse the models in the showroom. As Feng Shuo was choosing a car, Long Wanqing sat with Guogua in the VIP lounge, playing with her. Since it wasn't some ultra-luxury supercar, Feng Shuo didn't overthink it and made his choice quickly. Chapter 59, The Invitation to Join. Very quickly, Feng Shuo made his choice on the car model. In the end, he decided to buy an Audi A4L, as it had decent safety performance and was relatively comfortable to drive. After finalizing the selection, Feng Shuo turned to ask Guogua's opinion. The car was being purchased for his daughter to use, so her input mattered greatly. However, Guogua knew nothing about cars. She only had preferences regarding color. Everything else she didn't care about. Long Wanqing curiously asked, Little Guogua, what color do you like? Guogua raised her hand and said, Red, bright red. Long Wanqing froze for a moment upon hearing this, even briefly losing herself in thought. It so happened that there was a red car available right then, and conveniently, the store had one in stock. So Feng Shuo immediately decided to purchase it and drive it home today. Just as he was about to go pay, Long Wanqing suddenly said, Oh, by the way, I have quite a few points here that can be used as cash credits. That could save you a significant amount. Feng Shuo smiled gently. Thank you for the kind offer, but you might need those points yourself. There's no need to spend them for me. Keep them. You might find a use later. Long Wanqing shook her head. Those points are useless to me. Here, Jifun can only be used as cash discounts when buying a car, nothing else. If I don't use them by year end, they'll just expire anyway. Feng Shuo paused briefly, then nodded. All right then. Since that's the case, I'll accept with gratitude. Long Wanqing took out her VIP card and handed it to the young salesperson. After swiping it through the machine, the employee saw there were indeed a large number of points recorded, and as she'd mentioned, many of them would expire by year end. Truthfully, Feng Shuo simply didn't want to owe Long Wanqing any favors, but since the points were going to expire anyway, using them now instead of letting them go to waste seemed reasonable. It was almost as if he was helping her dispose of something useless. It didn't count as being indebted to her. All the Jifun were converted into cash credits, saving Feng Shuo nearly 10,000 yuan. Your car probably won't be ready just yet, because we still need to install the navigation system, sound equipment, and interior fittings. It'll take more than 1 or 2 hours to finish. Since we're waiting anyway, why don't we grab dinner first? Long Wanqing suggested. Her own car also required servicing, and Feng Shuo's pickup would require waiting too. Just sitting around doing nothing would indeed be a waste of time. Having dinner together sounded like a good idea. Feng Shuo checked the time and realized it was already about dinner hour. Long Wanqing led them to a rather upscale restaurant nearby and seated them at a window-side table. She must have come here frequently. Without even glancing at the menu, she directly ordered several dishes. As the food arrived one after another, Feng Shuo took a few bites. Indeed, both flavor and texture were excellent. If a place like this met Long Wanqing standards, it certainly had its unique strengths. Long Wanqing looked at Feng Shuo and said, This restaurant peaks every day during dinner service. At its busiest, it serves over 2,000 customers a day. The daily revenue is close to 100,000 yuan. But do you know what the profit margin is? Feng Shuo looked up and carefully observed his surroundings before replying. If we're talking gross profit, maybe around 50,000. But net profit? At most, 20,000. Long Wanqing showed surprise, yet admiration also flickered in her eyes. She nodded. Exactly. Net profit of just over 20,000 per day means monthly earnings fall short of 1 million. It's hard to imagine such a high-end restaurant making such little profit. But your Bullfrog Hot Pot restaurant usually pulls in about 20,000 daily, rising to 50 or 60,000 on weekends. Yet your profit margin is surprisingly high, 60 to 70%. Month after month, your total profits are almost on par with this restaurant. Do you know why that is? Long Wanqing gazed at Feng Shuo, clearly anticipating his answer. Feng Shuo chuckled. The reason is simple. It's a problem even middle school students can solve. High-end restaurants charge premium prices and appeal to a limited audience. Most guests here are mid to upper-level employees from nearby companies. On the other hand, your Bullfrog Hot Pot shop offers low prices, so anyone can afford to try it. Your profit depends directly on your unit price and volume sold. Unit price and volume have an inverse relationship. Raise the price, sales drop. Lower the price, sales increase, and vice versa. If the unit price is too low, even massive sales won't yield much profit. Too high, and you can't sell anything, so no profit either. Only when unit price and volume reach a certain equilibrium point does profit maximize. At this, Feng Shuo couldn't help but laugh. This is basic math application. Sadly, though people learn how to solve these problems in school, when faced with real-life situations, they often become completely confused. The admiration in Long Wanqing's eyes deepened, and she kept nodding. Very well said. To be honest, this restaurant here is also under Longjia Investments. I did a comparative data model analysis of 2 stores, and the results shocked me. At first, I couldn't grasp the logic behind it, but later I gradually understood. It was exactly what you just described. Feng Shuo, you're smart, sharp-minded, and on top of that, you once saved my life. So regardless of which aspect we look at, I truly admire you. Having said this, Long Wanqing suddenly paused. Feng Shuan knew she must have something important to say. She had deliberately stopped to wait until he gave her his full attention before continuing. So Feng Shuan set down his chopsticks and looked directly at Long Wanqing. What do you want to say? Long Wanqing smiled gently and reached out her hand. Would you be interested in joining Longjia? In terms of compensation, I promise you won't be shortchanged. Moreover, I can give you a portion of shares, making you a shareholder of Longjia, with real decision-making power in the company. Feng Shuan never expected that Long Wanqing would actually invite him to join her company. Longjia Investment Management Company, although far smaller than Longhai Group in scale, was undoubtedly a firm with substantial assets as an investment company. If he agreed, given Long Wanqing's personality, she would surely grant him enough shares to have genuine influence within the company. Furthermore, becoming a shareholder would immediately elevate his net worth. Whenever the company made profits, he'd earn dividends too. With Long Wanqing at the helm, the company's prospects were bright. Future dividends were bound to be significant. To ordinary people, these might indeed be enormous temptations. But to Feng Shuan, none of it mattered. Not even Longjia Investment Management Company itself earned so much as a second glance from him. In his previous life, his wealth had reached hundreds of billions. How could a mere company like Longjia possibly compare? Moreover, Feng Shuan also knew that Longjia Investment wasn't solely under Long Wanqing's control. She had several partners. Every major decision required approval from the other shareholders. Even if Feng Shuan joined Longjia and received shares, when it came to critical decisions, he would still lack real influence. Chapter 60, 2 Refusals. Having a few helpers during the process of starting a business is important. However, helpers can only remain helpers. The final decision-making power in critical moments must still rest in the hands of one person. When there are many people, there are many opinions. If a company has more than one person in charge, it will inevitably split apart in the future due to disagreements. Feng Shuan didn't want to work for such a company, because he could already foresee how things would end. Thank you for your kindness and for thinking so highly of me. But I'm used to being free and independent. I don't like being tied down. So I'll have to politely decline your invitation, Feng Shuan said. Long Wanqing didn't put on any pretense. She immediately withdrew her hand, swift and decisive. Since the other party had clearly refused, continuing to persuade would only waste time. It was better to leave some dignity and room for both sides. Perhaps opportunities might arise again in the future. Everyone has their own path. I won't force you. But remember this, you've now refused me twice. Long Wanqing said calmly. Feng Shuan smiled slightly, saying nothing. Guoguo remained quietly obedient throughout, not interrupting once, focusing instead on eating her food. The dishes really were delicious, and her mouth was smeared with sauce. Just as Feng Shuan reached for a napkin to wipe Guoguo's mouth, Long Wanqing beat him to it, gently wiping the girl's lips clean while scolding playfully. Look at you. Your whole face is oily. Eat slower, nobody's rushing you. And if you're still hungry, we can order more. For some reason, Feng Shuan couldn't shake the feeling that Long Wanqing seemed overly affectionate toward Guoguo. The first time she met Guoguo, she'd immediately handed her 50 yuan as a tip. And today, during dinner, she treated Guoguo almost as if she were her own child. They'd only met twice. Why did it feel like she already knew Guoguo so well? Feng Shuan kept these doubts to himself without voicing them. After all, they were just feelings. Shortly after finishing the meal, Feng Shuan received a call from the 4S shop. His car was ready for pickup anytime. Meanwhile, Long Wanqing's vehicle maintenance had also been completed. After settling the bill and leaving the restaurant, they arrived at the 4S shop. The car Feng Shuan had chosen was already parked at the entrance. The service here truly was impressive. Now that the car was ready and dinner was over, it was time to part ways. Feng Shuan picked up Guoguo. Say goodbye to sister. Guoguo waved at Long Wanqing. Bye-bye, sister. Long Wanqing walked over, took Guoguo's small hand, and smiled. Little Guoguo, would you like me to take you to the amusement park this weekend? Guoguo's eyes widened. Really? Of course. We'll ride the Ferris wheel, the pirate ship, the roller coaster. Oh, and we can have ice cream and cotton candy too. Being a child, Guoguo's eyes sparkled instantly with excitement, her face glowing with anticipation. Yet Feng Shuan declined firmly. Miss Long, thank you for your kindness, but Guoguo already has plans this weekend. I'm afraid she won't be able to go to the amusement park. Guoguo, understanding as ever, followed his lead despite her eagerness. Sister, I can't go to the amusement park this weekend because I'm busy. A clear look of disappointment crossed Long Wanqing's face. She opened her mouth as if to say something, then stopped herself. Finally, she simply waved her hand. All right then, forget it. Goodbye. With that, she got into her car, stepped on the gas, and drove off. Watching the tail lights of Long Wanqing's car fade into the distance, Guoguo asked worriedly, Dad, is the sister angry? Feng Shuan shrugged indifferently. Whether she's angry or not doesn't matter. It's none of our concern. Then, turning serious, he said, Guoguo, remember this. No matter who you meet in the future, if you're not very familiar with them, never easily accept their invitations. Do you understand? Guoguo looked puzzled. Why? Bad people don't wear labels on their foreheads. You can't know what someone truly thinks inside. Many evil people seem kind and friendly on the outside, but deep down, there's a devil living in their hearts. Guoguo paused, thinking, does that sister have a devil in her heart too? Feng Shuan chuckled. I'm just making a point with an example. I wasn't referring to anyone specific. Whether or not that sister has a devil in her heart, I don't know. But since we don't know her well, we can't just go off to the amusement park with her. If you really want to go, I'll take you this weekend. We'll spend the whole day there. Hearing this, Guoguo raised her hands in joy. Yay, Dad is the best. The two then got into the car and headed home. It was Guoguo's first time riding in a private car that wasn't a taxi. Everything felt brand new to her, so she touched this, poked that, curious about every little thing. Dad, is this car really ours? Do we actually buy it? The little girl still couldn't quite believe it. Of course. Didn't you see Dad just pay that, Uncle? Guogwa clapped her hands in delight. Great. We finally have a car. Most of my classmates' families have cars, and now we do too. This is amazing. Hearing this, Feng Shuo felt a pang of guilt. Given his abilities, they should have been able to afford a car long ago. But after being framed and falling into despair, their lives had gradually deteriorated, and the plan to buy a car had been shelved indefinitely. Dad, can we go out for trips on weekends now? Guogwa asked. Feng Shuo nodded. Yes, we can go anywhere you want, even to other cities. Suddenly, as if struck by a thought, Guogwa's excitement faded. After a long silence, she quietly asked, Dad, if Mom finds out we bought a car, will she still divorce you and stay with Uncle Guan? Feng Shuo froze at the question. He had assumed the divorce wouldn't affect Guogwa much. But now he realized he was wrong. Guogwa was still a child, and kids her age naturally wanted both parents by their side. But she was so mature for her age, she didn't want to make things harder for him, so she pretended not to care. Still, she couldn't hide everything. Her true feelings slipped through in her words. Deep down, she didn't want him and Lin Fong to divorce. No child in the world truly wishes for their parents to separate. And so, whenever the thought came up, her mood would suddenly darken. After a long silence, Feng Shuo finally spoke. Guogwa, the adult world is complicated. Sometimes people don't change their decisions just because of one thing. Maybe when you grow up, you'll understand. But Dad can promise you this. If your mom ever changes her mind, I won't let her go. They had shared a life together, and they had a daughter. For all these reasons, he wouldn't take divorce lightly. Of course, if Lin Fong insisted on it, he wouldn't have a choice. Chapter 61, Absolutely not. Guogwa lifted her head. Really? But what if Mom insists on divorcing? Feng Shuo shrugged. Then there's nothing I can do. We'll try our best, but if we can't change the outcome, we'll just have to face it bravely. Guogwa nodded vaguely, not fully understanding. Having spent the entire afternoon running around with Feng Shuo after school, and since it was already quite late, Guogwa fell asleep in the car. Feng Shuo had no choice but to carry her into the house and open the door. To his surprise upon entering, Feng Shuo found that Lin Fong had already returned. She sat quietly in the living room, a large suitcase placed in front of her. I told you to come back early. Why are you so late? Lin Fong's tone was cold. Yesterday you lectured me about making our daughter late for school. Now you're doing the same thing. So it's perfectly fine for you, is it? Feng Shuo had anticipated what she would say yesterday. He replied calmly. I took Guogwa out for dinner, so we got back a bit late. But I wouldn't say it's too late. I at least made it home before my daughter went to sleep. Whatever. I don't want to argue about this. Take the girl to her room. I need to talk to you. Feng Shuo didn't argue. He carried Guogwa to her room, carefully tucked her under the blanket, then returned to the living room. He sat down calmly. All right. What do you want to say? Lin Fong let out a deep sigh. We were supposed to go to the civil affairs office last time, but it got delayed due to some unexpected incident. Anyway, we've come this far. It's irreversible now. You're right. There's no point dragging this on. So tomorrow morning, let's go to the civil affairs office and finish what we started last time. Feng Shuo looked at Lin Fong, his mind flashing back to Guogwa's words earlier. No matter what, for his daughter's sake, he should still fight for this. So he said, divorce isn't something to take lightly. I advise you to think carefully. Not for my sake, but for Guogwa's. You really should consider this seriously. Lin Fong shook her head. I'd already thought it through when we went to the civil affairs office last time. Feng Shuo, we've been married 7 years. We have a daughter. If I weren't truly desperate, would we have come to this? Desperate? Feng Shuo said coolly. When I was earning over 100,000 a month, why didn't you tell me you were desperate then? When you secretly took money to support your family, used all our savings to buy your brother a house. Why didn't you say you were desperate then? When I was framed and lost my job, did you ever comfort me once? Did you encourage me to get back on my feet? Other than complaining, did you ever say a single word that showed you cared? Lin Fong's face darkened. Are you bringing up old scores now? Do you know how much I've sacrificed for this family all these years? Have I ever complained? You call yourself a man, yet you've brought nothing but shame. Do you have any idea how much humiliation I've endured behind your back? Feng Shuo sneered. In the end, all you care about is yourself. Fine. There's no point continuing this conversation. I'm just asking you to reconsider, for Guogwa's sake. She doesn't want us to divorce. Don't use our daughter as an excuse. Lin Fong snapped coldly. I've had enough of this life. I don't want to endure even one more day. I took Guogwa with me for a week to see if she could adapt to a new life. And it turned out she adapted perfectly well. She even gets along very well with Guan Yunshui. So I have no more doubts. We must get divorced. No matter how much you say tonight, it won't change anything. Feng Shuo shook his head. What you call adapting, is it forcing her to wear makeup against her will? Or taking her to eat hot pot and steak? Things she clearly doesn't like. Lin Fong cut him off. This is a high-quality lifestyle. Guogwa just hasn't gotten used to it yet. Once she does, she'll love it. Enough. I don't want to discuss this anymore. I've already drafted the divorce agreement. Take a look. If you find no problem, just sign it. As she spoke, she placed a divorce agreement on the coffee table. Feng Shuo picked it up and quickly skimmed through it. His expression immediately turned grim. What exactly do you mean, he asked. Lin Fong answered calmly. The house is our joint property, so each of us, me, you, and Guogwa, owns 1/3. After the divorce, Guogwa must live with me. For your 1/3 share of the property, I'll compensate you in cash. No way. Absolutely not. Feng Shuo suppressed his rage and said firmly, listen carefully, Lin Fong. I don't want a single penny of this household. I don't intend to split the house with you. Everything, all of it, I leave to you. But one thing, my daughter will never go with you. I'm her father, and I will take care of her, Lin Fong said coldly. Well, I'm still her mother. You don't have a job, no source of income. You can barely support yourself. What makes you think you're qualified to take my daughter away from me? Fong Shuo retorted. I do have a source of income, and I can absolutely give Guoguo a better life. Lin Fong sneered. You mean those illegal businesses of yours? That's exactly why I'm determined not to let Guoguo stay with you. Right now, you're just lucky. So far, nothing's happened. But can you guarantee you'll stay lucky forever? One single mistake, and you'll end up behind bars. I don't want Guoguo growing up with a father who's in prison. Besides, I'm fully capable of giving Guoguo a wealthy and comfortable life. Fong Shuo replied calmly. You're talking about Guan Yunshui, aren't you? A life that depends on someone else. How long do you really think it will last? Right now, Guan Yunshui is still infatuated with you, so he grants every wish you make. But once that novelty fades, do you really think he'll keep indulging you? Moreover, Guan Yunshui isn't as simple as he appears. He's calculating and shrewd. To put it bluntly, all he wants is you. As far as he's concerned, Guoguo is nothing but a burden. Let's not even get into other issues. When Guoguo was seriously ill and we couldn't afford her medical bills, Guan Yunshui had the means to help you. Yet he did nothing. Have you ever thought about why? Lin Fong froze at his words. She had never considered this before, and now that Fong Shuo brought it up, she didn't know how to respond. Instinctively, she asked why. Because he doesn't want Guoguo to survive. Guoguo isn't his blood daughter. She means nothing to him. And if he wants you completely, he'd need to win Guoguo's affection too. But Guan Yunshui doesn't have the patience for that. Just look at Guoguo's attitude toward him. He's never made any real effort to win her heart, which is why she dislikes him so much. If Guoguo were to fall seriously ill, or worse, pass away, he'd be spared a great deal of trouble. He thinks his petty schemes are invisible, but I see them clearly. I've just been too indifferent to expose him. After hearing Fong Shuo's words, Lin Fong remained silent for a long time. She stayed quiet for what felt like an eternity, then finally insisted, everything you've said is just your own speculation. There's no solid evidence to back it up. Chapter 62 Envy and Jealousy. No matter what you say, Guoguo absolutely cannot go with you. Even if Guan Yunshui isn't sincere about Guoguo, I'd never allow my daughter to follow a father who's a criminal. So I'm taking Guoguo. She's mine. Fong Shuo stood up firmly and said, impossible. You can take the house. The money you secretly sent to your family behind my back, I won't ask you to pay it back. But when it comes to Guoguo, I won't give in at all. Lin Fong's face hardened as she snapped angrily. Fine then. If we can't reach an agreement, let's settle this in court. We'll see what the judge decides. She stormed off, stomped into her room, and slammed the door shut with a loud bang. Fong Shuo had thought this deadlock would continue indefinitely. But to his surprise, early the next morning, Lin Fong was suddenly like a different person. She agreed to let him have Guoguo. I thought about it all night. Since you're so determined for Guoguo to stay with you, I won't oppose it anymore. But you must guarantee me basic visitation rights. A slight smirk curled at the corner of Fong Shuo's mouth. Yesterday, Lin Fong had been so firm, even threatening to go to court, showing no sign of backing down. Yet within just one night, she completely changed her mind. It made no sense. Without needing to ask, he knew someone must have talked her into it. And that someone could only be her parents. Though he didn't know what scheme they were plotting, Fong Shuo wasn't afraid of them at all. Bring on whatever tricks they had. He'd meet force with force and water with earth. He had ways to handle anything. Lin Fong placed the revised divorce agreement in front of Fong Shuo. He scanned through it, found nothing problematic, and signed it without hesitation. After signing, Lin Fong happily tucked the document away, then told him, I'll head to the Civil Affairs Bureau first. Once you've dropped off our daughter, come over. I'll wait for you. Fong Shuo nodded. After sending Guoguo onto the school bus, he drove his newly purchased car toward the Civil Affairs Bureau. Upon arrival, he noticed quite a crowd had gathered. Not only had Guan Yunshui arrived, but Lin Fong's entire parental family was there too. Lin Guoxiong was chatting with Guan Yunshui, beaming with delight. Despite being a mid-level manager at a state-owned enterprise, he spoke to Guan Yunshui with an almost servile tone. Zhou Ping and Lin Bing were practically groveling around Guan Yunshui, fawning and flattering him incessantly. Their words were so obsequious, they made one's skin crawl. Fong Shuo seemed to see reflected before him his former self, and the people he used to be surrounded by. Only Shi Xiaomei stood quietly aside, silently supporting Lin Fong. Fong Shuo drove up, looking for a parking spot. The bright red car stood out immediately. When Lin Guoxiong and Lin Bing caught sight of it, their eyes gleamed with envy. Whoa, the latest Audi A4L, this is truly a luxury car. If I could ever afford one, I'd be laughing in my sleep. Lin Guoxiong also couldn't hide his admiration. Though he held a managerial position in a state-owned company, he was merely a small-time official, not nearly important enough to qualify for an official vehicle. Owning a private car of his own had long been his dream. Unfortunately, with the family's heavy financial burdens, saving up was impossible. That dream remained forever out of reach. But now, as long as his daughter married Guan Yunshui, he believed it wouldn't be long before he owned a car. After all, Guan Yunshui was a boss. Was it really too much to expect a son-in-law who ran a business to gift his father-in-law a vehicle? Zhou Ping was similarly consumed by jealousy and longing. Her thoughts mirrored those of Lin Guoxiong and Lin Bing. When Lin Fong saw the car, she froze momentarily. That morning, when she left home, she had noticed a red Audi A4L parked outside their gate. Could it be the same one? What were the odds that the owner of this car was also here at the Civil Affairs Bureau? Under everyone's watchful gaze, Feng Shuo smoothly parked the car and stepped out. At the instant they recognized Feng Shuo, every single person present froze in shock. Especially Lin Guoxiong's family. They looked as if someone had clamped a hand over their throats, utterly speechless. Feng Shuo? The one driving was Feng Shuo? How could this be? Wasn't Feng Shuo supposed to be a good-for-nothing layabout? How could he possibly afford a luxury car like this? Lin Feng stared in utter disbelief. She never imagined that this red Audi A4L actually belonged to Feng Shuo. Unfazed by their stunned silence, Feng Shuo walked straight up to Lin Feng and said coolly, "I'm here. Let's go inside." Still dazed, Lin Feng pointed at the car and stammered, "This car yours?" Feng Shuo nodded. "Yes, mine. Picked it up yesterday." Guoguo chose the color. Quickly, she snapped out of her shock. In its place came a surge of dread. She had always doubted Feng Shuo's source of income. She didn't believe someone could make so much money in such a short time through legitimate business, something Guan Yunshui had already confirmed for her. Thus, she firmly believed Feng Shuo was involved in illegal activities. It seemed Feng Shuo was truly spiraling down a dark path, now even buying a car with illicit gains. If this continued, it wouldn't just end with prison and legal trouble. He might not survive it at all. Seeing Lin Feng still dazed, Feng Shuo urged, "What are you standing there for? Your family is waiting. Let's go inside and finish the paperwork." Lin Feng finally came to her senses, nodded, and walked into the Civil Affairs Bureau with Feng Shuo. Lin Guoxiong stared at Feng Shuo's retreating figure, muttering in disbelief. How is this possible? How could Feng Shuo afford such an expensive car? The car hadn't been registered yet. It bore temporary plates, clearly freshly picked up, so it couldn't have been borrowed from someone else. No one would lend out a brand new car like that. And certainly, it couldn't have been rented. The rental company's vehicles were all fully licensed. The only possibility was that he'd bought it brand new himself. Yet Lin Guoxiong simply couldn't believe Feng Shuo had the means to purchase such a luxury car. He knew exactly how broke Feng Shuo's family was. At that moment, Lin Bing suddenly remembered something and whispered to Lin Guoxiong, "Dad, don't you remember? The last time I got into trouble, my sister brought over a bank card with 420,000 yuan. At the time, I didn't think much of it. But later, when I looked back, it seemed suspicious. We all know what their financial situation is like. Where on earth did she get 420,000 yuan?" That reminder jolted Lin Guoxiong's memory. "You're right. I completely forgot." Their family was barely scraping by. Yet Lin Feng somehow produced 420,000 yuan overnight. Even if they mortgaged the house, they couldn't have borrowed that much. Zhou Ping frowned and said, "Could it be that Feng Shuo has been hiding his wealth from us all along? Maybe he's made a fortune behind our backs, and now that he wants a divorce, he's trying to hide his assets so we can't claim any." As soon as she said that, Lin Guoxiong and Lin Bing's eyes lit up fiercely, their faces breaking into sudden realizations. Chapter 63. Let's celebrate. That's exactly how it must be. Lin Bing slapped his thigh hard. I bet he won the lottery or something outside. Aunt's afraid we'll find out. So he secretly stashed the money away. Lin Guoxiong snorted angrily. What a bastard. Even if he did win, it's joint marital property. Half of it belongs to our family. Zhou Ping was furious. Go stop them right now. You cunning Feng Shuo, trying to hide your fortune. No matter how much money you have, we're entitled to half of it. Just as this family of three were shouting about stopping Lin Feng's divorce, Guan Yunshui stepped forward and blocked their way. Uncle, aunt, little brother Lin Bing, please calm down. Hear me out for a moment. Though anxious, Lin Guoxiong still didn't dare disrespect Guan Yunshui. He asked with forced patience, Mr. Guan, what do you have to say? Feng Shuo did run some kind of business on the side and made a little fortune. Otherwise, how do you think his daughter's illness got cured? Said Guan Yunshui. The three nodded vigorously in agreement. But do you know what kind of business he ran? Guan Yunshui sneered. They shook their heads. From what I know, he earned 10,000 within 3 days, 150,000 within a week, and over 420,000 in less than a month. As far as I'm concerned, no legitimate business can make money that fast. The three exchanged glances before saying in unison, he's running an illegal operation? Guan Yunshui nodded. After another round of eye contact, Lin Guoxiong, Lin Bing, and Zhou Ping all wore looks of sudden realization. It made perfect sense. Guan Yunshui was a successful businessman himself. His judgment about Feng Shuo being involved in something unlawful was probably spot on. Apart from illegal ventures, where else could someone earn hundreds of thousands in just a few days? Guan Yunshui's own company couldn't possibly rake in such sums in days, let alone someone like Feng Shuo, starting from nothing. Lin Guoxiong looked grave. If he's involved in something illegal, will it implicate us? He asked because earlier, Lin Feng had given Lin Bing 420,000 yuan as compensation. If Feng Shuo's income was from criminal activities, using that money might expose them to risk. Guan Yunshui smiled and reassured. Don't worry, uncle. Since you were unaware, if Feng Shuo gets caught, it'll only be his problem. It won't affect anyone else. A greedy glint flashed across Zhou Ping's face. Well then, since it won't affect us, wouldn't it be okay for us to take half his assets? Guan shook his head. Absolutely not. If he gets arrested, all illegally obtained income will be confiscated by the state. It's best not to touch dirty money at all. Lin Guoxiong nodded firmly in agreement and snapped. Typical woman's thinking, greedy for every penny. Zhou Ping pouted but didn't dare say another word. About half an hour later, Feng Shuo and Lin Feng walked out, holding a divorce certificate. Lin Feng suddenly felt a sense of liberation, much lighter. Whether due to pressure from family or life itself, she'd wanted this divorce for a long time. Now that her wish had finally come true, she took a deep, satisfying breath as soon as she stepped out. Guan Yunshui quickly approached, smiling broadly. All the paperwork done. Great. Let's go celebrate. Celebrating someone else's divorce? He completely ignored Feng Shuo as if he wasn't even there. Lin Guoxiong and Zhou Ping also came forward, grabbing the divorce certificate from Lin Feng and inspecting it closely. Zhou Ping couldn't help but laugh, finally got rid of that burden. Truly a cause for celebration. Lin Bing laughed heartily. Sis, from now on, your life's gonna be great. When you get rich, don't forget about your dear brother. Lin Guoxiong waved his hand. Come on. Don't just stand around here. Let's find a place to have a meal. Guan Yunshui immediately called and reserved a restaurant. The whole family was joyous and excited, except for Shi Xiaomei, who felt uneasy about their behavior. She tried to Lin Bing, Mom, Dad, this isn't something to celebrate. It's not exactly a happy occasion. Let's just go home and eat instead. Besides, she added, your brother-in-law is still right here. Being so blatant like this, it makes him look so awkward. No sooner had she spoken than Lin Bing snapped. Shut up. What brother-in-law? My sister divorced him. He's history. Shi Xiaomei glanced at Feng Shuo and sighed quietly. Feng Shuo had already lost all hope in this family. Their reactions meant nothing to him anymore. Moreover, he had seen their fate coming long ago. There was no point getting angry. The only thing he regretted was Shi Xiaomei's eventual fate. She was a kind and gentle woman. She didn't deserve such a tragic future. Without acknowledging any of them, he turned and walked away, got into his car, and drove off. Although the whole family believed Feng Shuo had earned his money through illegal business, he had still bought a car after all. To say they weren't envious would be lying. Beyond envy, there was endless jealousy, so intense it made their teeth ache. Lin Bing gritted his teeth and said, the world is truly unfair. Honest, law-abiding citizens like me struggle in poverty, while criminals drive luxury cars. Guan Yunshui chuckled. His glory won't last. He'll get what's coming to him sooner or later. Lin Bing retorted bitterly. I wish he'd get punished right this instant. Guan Yunshui suddenly wore a cold, sinister smile. People like him can't withstand an investigation. He said no more. Just that one sentence, enough to plant the seed. Whether someone chose to act on it was beyond his control. But surprisingly, Lin Guoxiong did take those words to heart. He didn't show it on his face at the time, but he stored the idea deep inside. Shortly after, the entire family followed Guan Yunshui to a restaurant for a celebratory meal before heading home. Since Feng Shuo had left with nothing, giving up everything in the divorce, Lin Feng decided to move back into their old home. Staying at a hotel indefinitely was inconvenient, and living in her own house simply felt more comfortable. Zhou Ping told Lin Guoxiong and the others to go ahead, while she stayed behind to help Lin Feng pack and personally escort her home. Mother and daughter arrived at the hotel. Just as Lin Feng was about to start packing, Zhou Ping said, Feng, wait a moment. Your mother wants to talk to you. Lin Feng looked surprised. Mom, what do you want to say? Listen to your mother for once. Hurry up and marry Guan Yunshui as soon as possible. Zhou Ping urged. Lin Feng hesitated. But I just got divorced. Isn't it too soon to remarry Guan Yunshui? Not at all. The longer we wait, the more things could go wrong. Listen to me. I only want what's best for you. Zhou Ping said earnestly. If I hadn't advised you earlier, you'd still be fighting Feng Shuo over Guoguo's custody right now. A woman has only a few years of youth. If you miss this chance, it'll be too late. As for child custody, you can always sue him after the divorce. Our priority now is to finalize this divorce, and then quickly marry Guan Yunshui. Once you're married, you'll be the boss's wife. And Feng Shuo? He's running illegal operations. Once he's caught, he'll definitely end up in jail. Then, when you file for custody in court, you'll surely win. Chapter 64 Hurry up and get married. Lin Feng nodded repeatedly, deeply agreeing with Zhou Ping's words. The reason she agreed to let Guoguo go to Feng Shuo was because Zhou Ping had advised her to first get the divorce done no matter what, then later file a lawsuit in court to fight for custody of her daughter. Zhou Ping was desperate for her daughter to marry into wealth. With Guan Yunshui, a rich businessman, pursuing Lin Feng, of course she couldn't wait for Feng Shuo to divorce her daughter as soon as possible. Therefore, after much persuasion and brainwashing from Zhou Ping, Lin Feng agreed to let Guoguo stay with Feng Shuo while they finalized the procedures. To Zhou Ping and her family, custody of Guoguo didn't really matter at all. All they cared about was getting Lin Feng married to Guan Yunshui as soon as possible, so they could legitimately benefit from him. For this reason, Zhou Ping urged Lin Feng impatiently to go ahead and marry Guan Yunshui quickly. But Lin Feng had her reservations. After all, she was a woman. If she divorced her husband one day and married Guan Yunshui the next, people would certainly talk. Others would assume she had already been involved with Guan Yunshui before the divorce. Being accused of adultery during marriage would bring unbearable shame and condemnation. Yet only she herself knew the truth, that it had always been Guan Yunshui pursuing her, and she had never given him any promises. Moreover, they had always maintained a completely innocent relationship. At most, Guan Yunshui had only held her hand. There had never been anything further. She was someone who valued reputation and did not want to be branded unfaithful. So regarding remarriage, she had her own plans and considerations. Zhou Ping naturally understood her daughter's character, so she wasn't in a rush. She merely made her position clear for now, planning to slowly persuade her later. After packing up her things, Lin Feng returned home by herself. Having been away for so long, she felt an unfamiliarity upon returning. The house looked completely renewed. New furniture, new appliances, even the floors and walls were spotlessly clean. Feng Shuo had come back earlier, collecting his personal belongings and all the clothes Guoguo frequently changed into. Now the large house stood empty, leaving only her behind. Although she had finally achieved her goal of getting a divorce, Lin Feng felt no joy. That brief sense of relief she experienced existed only when she stepped out of the Civil Affairs Bureau. Now all that remained was a faint melancholy. Meanwhile, Feng Shuai drove to a residential neighborhood in the city center. The house he bought couldn't be moved into yet, and since he decided to leave with nothing, he couldn't continue staying at their former home. So he asked Xiao Xuejin for help renting an apartment here. The place was fully furnished and ready to move into immediately. Feng Shuai didn't have high demands for where he lived now. Clean and comfortable was enough. As for size, it didn't matter at all. It was just a temporary place to stay, no need to be particular. Fortunately, Xiao Xuejin knew Feng Shuai wasn't ordinary, so he